Ladies and gentlemen, good evening again. We are getting ready to start our October 18th Mayor and Council meeting. We appreciate you being here. We have two opportunities to speak this evening. There is a 2-minute item before the downtown redevelopment, and you will be able to speak for a total of 2 minutes. That is a sign-in sheet that is up at the front at the clerk's desk. We will need you to record if your information is on here already. That's great. If not, please give us your name and at least one identifying marker such as your address or an email address for the official meeting minutes. Additionally, we have our regular citizen input time of 3 minutes at the end of the meeting. You may sign up for both to speak, and we appreciate you being here.
All right, I want to welcome everybody. Thank you all for being here. We got a great crowd tonight. I see my wife and kids back there. Hey, Sam. Hey, Jack. It's Monday, October 18th. We'll start tonight with the invocation and pledge, and we have Reverend Pam McCurdy from Bethany United Methodist Church at 760 Hurt Road. Please come on up, and everybody please rise.
Today and your faithful presence with us, we offer gratitude. We thank you for our community of Smyrna, for the beauty, creativity, and diversity of its people. We thank you. We thank you for those who serve our city as elected officials, staff, first responders, teachers, faith and business leaders, workers, or as community volunteers. Guiding God, direct our listening, our thinking, our responding, and our speaking during this meeting of the City Council. May the conversations and decisions made in this room this evening be pleasing to you. May the decisions made ensure the safety and well-being of all of those who call Smyrna home. May city officials and residents always work together for the good of the whole community. Amen. And now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend, for being with us tonight. Appreciate you being here. Item 2 is agenda changes. We don't have any. Item 3 is the mayoral report, and we have a proclamation tonight in honor of the 10th anniversary celebration of Foundation Chapter number 587, Order of the Eastern Star, Prince Hall. And we have some folks here, I believe, to accept the proclamation. We have Sister Tamika Bryant, Michael Gaither, Candace Frederick, and Phoebe Boyd. And I'd invite you all up now if you're here. Great, come on up. Before I turn it over to Mr. Gould to read the proclamation, this group was chartered in June of 2011. They focus their endeavors on serving Smyrna and the greater Cobb community. Their motto is Sisters Building on the Foundation for Positive Change in the Community. And their 2021 chapter theme is Bonding Together to Reach Our Destiny, as they focus on dedication, engagement, sisterhood, teamwork, inclusion, and being notable during this year of perseverance. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Tim Gould and to read the proclamation. Then I'll invite you all to speak a little bit about the history of your organization, and we'll go from there. Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks so much, y'all, for being here. A proclamation by the Mayor of the City of Smyrna in honor of the 10th anniversary celebration, Foundation Chapter number 587, Order of the Eastern Star, Prince Hall. Whereas the Foundation Chapter number 587, Order of the Eastern Star was chartered in June 10, 2011, and is under jurisdiction of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge and Prince Hall Grand Chapter of Georgia, And whereas Foundation Chapter number 587 is a charitable and benevolent organization that is dedicated to charity, truth, and loving kindness. And whereas Foundation Chapter number 587, with a current membership of 46, strives to honor its pledge to those less fortunate and focuses its endeavors on serving Smyrna, Georgia, and the greater Cobb County community. And whereas Foundation Chapter number 587's motto is Sisters Building the Foundation for Positive Change in the Community, reflect of its goal as a chapter to be a leading women's organization for charity to the needy with emphasis on women and children. And whereas Foundation Chapter number 587 is affiliated with the following businesses and organizations in Smyrna and greater Cobb County community: City of Smyrna, Keep Smyrna Beautiful, Argyle Elementary School, Must Ministries, Books for Africa, Reflections of Trinity, the NAACP Cobb County Branch, and Pruitt Health Austell Marietta. And whereas Foundation Chapter number 587 participates and donates regularly to several charitable causes each year, distributes $2,000 in scholarships annually to students, has always supported the community, and participates in numerous and other acts of kindness. Now, therefore, I, Derek Norton, Mayor of the City of Smyrna, Georgia, do hereby commend Foundation Chapter number 587 for their contributions to the community and proclaim Saturday, October 23rd, 2021, Foundation Chapter number 587 Day in honor of their 10th anniversary. It witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Smyrna to be affixed upon this, the 18th day of October, in the year of our Lord, 2021. Derek Norton, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do for our community. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your organization and introduce yourself? Yeah.
Absolutely. So as stated, I am Worthy Matron Tamika Bryant, and I just wanted to take an opportunity to first thank Mayor Derek Norton and the City of Smyrna for this proclamation celebrating our 10th year chapter anniversary. So first, I just wanted to say thank you. Also, as you heard, our organization is all about community service. It is at the heart of our chapter, and we look forward to working with Smyrna businesses in the Cobb County community. So we're very excited to be here for 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on, come on down and give you the proclamation. Get a picture.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks y'all very much for being here and what you do for the community. Item 4 is land issue zonings and annexations. We don't have any tonight. Item 5 is privileged licenses. We don't have any of those either, so we'll move on to formal business. Item 6A, AGR 2021-10, approval of the agreement with Croy Engineering for Survey Database Services and Transportation Improvement Program application for the South Cobb Drive Improvement Project in the amount of $516,350 to be funded out of the 2022 SPLOST. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This project is actually divided up into 3 tasks. Task 1, Croy will provide the professional services to prepare the design database for the project. Estimated time for completion in 6 months. This budget, $454,600. Task 2, Croy will assist the City of Smyrna in grant writing for the ARC TIP solicitation. The grant writing proposal comprises the South Cobb Drive Improvements Project being considered by the City of Smyrna for the TIP. Estimated dissemination time for this grant application is October 1st. It was submitted October 1st, 2021. Total budget, $11,750. And task 3 is the concept refinement and public involvement. They will evaluate the concept for South Cobb Drive improvements, the alternate number 4, and make any necessary modifications due to industry design changes. The task 3 budget of $50,000.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Is there any comments from the council, any staff here that wants to?
I'll comment.
Mr. Welch?
Are you going to?
If I could ask Greg to step up just a minute. Greg, I'm just, the way I understand it is phase 1 is essentially maybe a little more than a concept plan, but a detailed concept plan for review by the public. Is that what I'm understanding?
So the city completed the concept corridor study back in 2017.
Yeah.
So what this is to take the alternative number 4, which was the preferred alternative that was developed out of that, and refine that. It's, it's got a few years on it now, so it would be adjusting that and getting feedback.
And is phase 3 the public input portion of that project?
On this one, the public input would come as a part of the concept report, which would be the next step after this. So really, this is to gather the survey database to GDOT standards, work with council and staff to make adjustments for that. And then once we've got the project approved with Georgia DOT, that they've added it to the regional transportation plan, that would be when Georgia DOT would say, okay, now it's time to do that public comment piece.
So it'd really be the concept, the public input phase would be after this contract then?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So just for everybody's benefit, this is basically part of the money that we bonded to get started on South Cobb Drive, and we've had a lot of conversations with the Department of Transportation, Commissioner McMurray and others and staff. The reason that we're being moved up to the front of the line, so to speak, in this project is because we had a concept plan, we had dedicated funds, we had SPLOST funds, and this allows, when we bonded this allows us to get started early. And rather than having to wait 18 months, it looks like we're going to be considered in the spring for the initial parts of this.
Correct. So the Atlanta Regional Commission does a call for projects at only certain periods of time. So one of the reasons, as you mentioned in there, we actually did a submittal back at the 1st of October to hit that call for projects and make sure that we get in line so that the city can be eligible to receive state and federal funding on that. So timing-wise, that was why the significance of that.
Okay. Any other questions for Greg?
All I had, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Teague, if you could you just describe like the timeline a little bit, so folks understand, because I think a lot of folks here are interested in the South Cobb development. So you do the survey, could you kind of walk us through what the major
Absolutely.
events are?
So if Mayor and Council chooses to move forward with this contract, we begin the surveying process immediately, which is just going out and gathering the data in the field. Simultaneous to that, we'd be working with you to update that concept that was mentioned before and continuing to work with Georgia DOT and ARC to get on that regional list, which would hopefully, the application has gone in and would be on the list in the springtime. Assuming that we do get the project added to the list in the springtime, then that would be when the city would do a contract with Georgia DOT that would lock in the ability for the city to receive federal and state funds on that. So that would be springtime, and that would be when we would start that concept report. That's when we would start the environmental study, which has the requirement for the public involvement process as we go through that to look at the entire corridor. And then once the concept report is approved by Georgia DOT, then we would start on the detailed design. And all of those would come back to Mayor and Council for continued authorizations to go to those next steps.
And just to be clear, that's spring of next year, so
That's
2022.
correct. About
this
6 months
activity
from
would take
now,
place.
we would hope to be in a position to where the city's notified that it's been added to the regional transportation plan and the transportation improvement plan. And then that gives you confidence to be able to move forward. What Georgia DOT always does look very favorably on, our CIDs in the county have long done this, is the farther down the road you can get in getting the project ready for being shovel ready, basically, the higher it increases the chances for the city to get the project funded with some state and federal funding.
And knowing that this is a priority project, we're talking about from Concord Road to Windy Hill on South Cobb Drive, I want to thank you for your diligence in putting us in a position that we'd be moved up, almost a year in that process. So I'm excited about what's to come for South Cobb Drive, and this is the first step. Any other comments?
Yes, I was just going to ask, Greg, with those, like the TIP program and the other grants that y'all are reaching out, what is that typically requirement on the city side? What, what amount? Is it 50%? Is it 20%? I'm just kind of curious.
It really varies, and one of the things that the department has put out a notice to a lot of municipalities about, and I say the department, Georgia Department of Transportation, is if Congress does fund this infrastructure bill, they're going to have funding coming in, and right now we don't know what the rules are. Those 90-10s, 80-20s, 50-50. We don't know what that funding might be. Typically, for a DOT type project, you're looking at about a 20% is very typical. So all of this work that the city is doing, even the corridors study that we did back in 2017, all of those can be used as your local match money that count towards that 20% for the overall project.
Could you elaborate on that? So 20%, so the city puts in 20%, is that right?
That's correct, and that would be, subject to what funding
Lot of
comes
variables.
available to Georgia DOT and how that is structured, but that would be a typical request for a project like this.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, this is
Thank you.
in Ward 5. We'll turn it over to Councilmember Wilkinson.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, at this time, I would like to move to approve item 6A, AGR 2021-10, approval of the agreement with Croy Engineering for survey database services and transportation improvement program application for the South Cobb Drive improvement project in the amount of $516,350 to be funded out of 2022 SPLOST.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Wagner. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 6-0. I should mention Councilman Wheaton is unable to be with us tonight. I hope that you'll all have him and his family in your prayers. His father passed away last week, and so he's dealing with family affairs. I want everybody to notice our temporary screen. That we couldn't get, something happened with the screen here, and so if I'm correct, that looks like it's being held up with duct tape, right? I think duct tape and some kind of cords, but at least you're able to see, and we were able to thank you to our staff for coming up with a solution in short order there. All right, we'll move on to the next item. Item B, Ordinance 2021-20, approval of Ordinance 2021-20 to amend the pawn shop ordinance requiring holds for buy transactions, strictly purchases and not pawns other than precious metals, vehicles, titles, and vehicle components, be lifted and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The key question was whether or not the current requirements stated in the City of Smyrna pawn shop business ordinances requiring the length of time a pawned or purchased item was required to be held. This was originally established for the purpose of providing law enforcement ample time to check items for being stolen and be recovered, were unnecessarily lengthy, antiquated, or not in keeping with the speed and efficiency in which information is processed at the present. As a part of the review process of the pawn policy, it was determined that there are secondhand businesses in operation in the city which buy used items and offer them for resale. They do not abide by any ordinances for buying and reselling merchandise, while pawn businesses do the same type transactions, but they must follow the pawn ordinances. As long as pawn shops continue to maintain their current system of recording pawn and purchase transactions as specified in the City of Smyrna pawn ordinances, and they are vigilant in their efforts to only purchase items from persons and under circumstances they believe or know to be reputable and legitimate, then it is reasonable not to require a holding period unless they are directed to do so by law enforcement. The city administration and police department supports approval of ordinance 2021-20.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. So this basically creates parity and with pawn shops and other retailers and removes the competitive disadvantage that pawn shops have been under with a 30-day hold. Okay. Any questions, comments from council? All right. If there are none, we'll turn it over to Councilmember Lindley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to thank the folks at the Smyrna Police Department and sort of working on with some of our stakeholders in the community on this, what I would call an upgrade to sort of where we are with the reality of online sales. So with that, motion do pass as previously read and presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Welch. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 6-0. Thank you. The next item is 6C, 2021-475. Approve the implementation of the downtown improvements for the Village Green area and surrounding streets as shown on the preferred concept plan developed by Pond and Company and upgraded through citizen input as shown on the recommended concept plan dated October 15th, 2021. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Yes, sir. In 2019, the city enlisted Pond and Company to prepare a downtown master plan update that became known as Smyrna Bold. This study included significant public engagement. Pond implemented a multifaceted approach to obtain citizen engagement, including a dedicated project website, a community open house, stakeholder interviews, youth council focus groups, and attendance at community events to raise awareness of the Smyrna Bold effort and gather public input. In addition to this public input, a technical advisory committee, including several upper-level city staff members, was created, and the committee met several times during this initial process. The results of the study were presented to the city in 2020. This plan included a redesign of the Village Green area. Croy Engineering was asked to take the conceptual plan of the Village Green area from the Pond study and develop an engineering plan. Subsequently, this conceptual plan developed by Pond was included in the 2022 SPLOST list of projects and highlighted as a key project to be done if the SPLOST passed. The 2022 SPLOST, which included the conceptual plan, was overwhelmingly approved by the voters. On June 21st, 2021, the City Council voted to move forward with the project. The city formed a downtown redesign task force consisting of council members, citizens, and professionals, and re-engaged Pond to do a more detailed design of the downtown park space. The city also engaged Croy Engineering to do a traffic study to determine the impact of the traffic network in the area that could result with implementation of the plan. This study concluded that the proposed plan will not adversely impact traffic in the area. Through this process, to get additional public input, Pond conducted additional open houses and online public input sessions. At the end of this process, the committee agreed upon a preferred concept plan that includes improvements to surrounding streets and unanimously recommends this plan to the city. The estimated construction cost of this portion of the project, including the roadway improvements, is $5,698,317.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bennett. And I know that many of you are here for this item tonight, and rightly so. This is a big moment in the city's history in our downtown. This is not a public hearing because it's not a zoning, but I am going to allow public comment. So you're not going to have to get sworn in, but I do want to allow everybody a chance to speak. This has been vetted and discussed and commented on and for months now. But I do want to allow, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to speak for a minute on this, or a few minutes, so bear with me, and then I'm going to turn it over to Pond to make their presentation, and then I'm going to invite the public up, and then we'll have discussion amongst council. So I want the comments to be 1 to 2 minutes, no longer than 2 minutes. If we did any longer than that, there's too many people here. I want everybody who wants a chance to speak to be able to. I do have 2 citizen input sign-in sheets here, but I know that there's been a lot of folks come in since we started this meeting, and I'd encourage anybody who has not signed in to speak, who would like to speak, to either come up here or maybe, Jill, I don't know if you can take the sign-in sheets out to the crowd so that they can sign in as I'm speaking. That would be great. I want to, first of all, just say how excited I am about this reimagined, repurposed space. I believe it will not only create a new interactive green space for citizens to enjoy, but also be one piece of the downtown redevelopment puzzle that will lead to increased activity and energy in our city center. And when this happens, restaurants and retailers will come here because they want to be where people are. What our predecessors did here was start a great thing, and now we're building on that and creating something even better for the citizens of Smyrna. So I want to take a quick look back and talk about how we got to where we are tonight. Almost 2 years ago, in 2019, the BOLD study was commissioned by Mayor Bacon's administration to look at what improvements could be made to our downtown area. The study provided the council a menu of options to consider if and when any part of the downtown was reimagined, and was based on comments and observations from hundreds of citizens gathered through a variety of forums. As I visited more than 3,000 doors in the fall of 2019, and as members of this body also campaigned, what we heard from you loudly that it was a priority for you was new energy in our downtown. So I promised to work to bring you this new energy, and I believe what we have before us tonight will go a long way towards delivering on that promise and giving the people what they've asked for. In June, this council approved the concept plan after hosting public input sessions. The concept was based on the BOLD study and included replacing the roundabout with green space, extending King Street to Powder Springs Street, a traffic signal at Powder Springs and Atlanta Road, and a parking deck just south of the police station. Since then, we have gone back to the public and asked you what you want this new green space to look like. And through 9 hours of public input sessions and over a week of online comments, in addition to the hundreds of emails, social media posts, comments, phone calls, and feedback from neighborhood, civic, and business group meetings over the past several months, you have spoken. And one thing is clear. There is overwhelming support for this project in our community. You have showed up in force to give us your feedback on what you want included and what you do not want included. This plan has received more public input than any other single item in the history of the city of Smyrna. And what we're voting on tonight reflects the feedback that you gave us. Pon will present the plan here in a moment, but here are some of the highlights that are included that you asked for. A new green, pedestrian-friendly, interactive space that replaces the roundabout and fountain. Shade. 23 new trees will be planted, which is a net gain of trees in that area. Also included are removable shade structures that allow enjoyment of that space year-round while also allowing the space to be open for large events. Splash feature and reflecting pool. These are great interactive features and will complement the Veterans Memorial Green. New raised stage platform in front of the community center so that concerts will be open and everyone will be able to see them and enjoy. Plazas and seating areas for everyday enjoyment. Public art. Bicycle parking areas. Improved handicap accessibility on the east side of the community center. Improved connectivity between the Veterans Memorial Green, the Duck Pond and Arboretum, and the space between the community center and Atlanta Road. Significantly improved and reduced wait times at the intersection of Powder Springs and Atlanta Road based on an extensive traffic study completed after school began to make sure it was accurate. And Croy will address that a little bit later this evening. We also heard what you did not want. You did not want the Smyrna letters in front of the library. You did not want the Instagrammable moment, and we heard that. And the Smyrna letters have been removed from that plan and in favor of a mural by the stage instead. And all of the public art in this space will be done in conjunction with the Smyrna Arts Council and the Indie Arts Alliance. Bathrooms have been removed based on your input, but the infrastructure, we're going to put that in just in case we want to revisit that at a later date and move forward in the future. So right now we have 3 acres of space with the Veterans Memorial Green, the Duck Pond and Arboretum, and the space between the community center and Atlanta Road. And it's disjointed by the roundabout and fountain. This plan will connect the entire area and turn it into a pedestrian-friendly activity center, which will not only provide citizens with a new space to enjoy, but also will encourage businesses to locate here because of the increased activity. Now, let's talk about the budget. Tonight, you'll hear from opponents about the budget, and I want to address that right now. This project is funded by the SPLOST that you voted for in November of 2020. In that 2020 SPLOST, you approved nearly $59 million total, which is Smyrna's estimated share of the total of countywide collections over the next 6 years. And one of the line items was $13 million for downtown and South Cobb improvements. Now, nothing delineates this specifically, but the plan was for $6.5 million for downtown improvements and $6.5 million for South Cobb improvements. Another line item was the parking deck at $4 million. Nothing planned here takes any money away from South Cobb Drive, which we have made significant progress on and which will remain a top priority, and Mr. Teague already spoke to that on that item that we already voted on this evening. As originally presented and voted on, this concept just included green space, a new traffic light, a public restroom, and it had an estimated cost of $2.5 million. When you add the parking deck, which is $4 million, the total for the entire project was $6.5 million. This $6.5 million was included in the bond that we voted on this summer, and we did that so that we could get started on this project before SPLOST money started coming in 2022, do all the prep work and deliver this to you earlier than we would have otherwise been able to. After hearing from the public, it is clear that you want more for this space than just replacing the fountain with green space. You want features included that will make it great for years to come, and those all do come with a price. Included in the plan we will vote on tonight are all of those features and additions that you asked for, and the new price tag is a little over $5 million. When you add the standard 10% budget contingency for unanticipated expenses, the total goes to $5.6 million, or just under 5.7. And when you add design costs, it gets close to $6.4 million. With the parking deck included, we're just under $10.5 million. And the good news is this is exactly what you voted on and approved in the November SPLOST referendum. Since the voters approved $6.5 million for downtown improvements, and you have spoken loudly about what you want for this space, and this project falls within that amount, I believe it is this council's obligation to give you what you voted for and what you have asked for. After all, we represent you. The vote tonight is on the details and corresponding budget for the new space replacing the roundabout and the traffic light only. We will address the parking deck and the space to the east of the community center in the coming weeks and months, and I got to tell you, I am super excited about what that's going to look like as well. If construction costs for the parking deck make the 253 spaces that we originally presented cost prohibitive, then I think it's the council's duty to scale that back to fall within that $4 million budget with everything considered. And maybe we can have the possibility of adding more spaces later. But I reiterate that the vote tonight is only on the details of the new space replacing the roundabout and the new traffic signal and the corresponding budget. And in public comment, I want the comments to address what we are voting on this evening. The Downtown Details Task Force, a diverse, talented group that I appointed and that Councilman Lindley chaired, has worked hard and done a tremendous job over several months to deliver this final product tonight. And I know some of you are here in the audience, and I want to thank you for your service. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew with Pond for his presentation. We'll follow that. I guess Greg will come up with him, and then Councilman Lindley can tee this up for citizen input. Once again, everybody focus on our new screen.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, my name is Andrew Core. I'm the Director of Landscape Architecture with Pond. I was involved in the Smyrna Bold Plan, and we were asked to come and back and develop a detailed concept for the downtown green space, which is bordered by the library, the community center, and the Veterans Memorial Lawn. So what you see on the screen today is the culmination of a public input process. As a reminder, we worked with the Downtown Task Force and the public and provided them with both a materials palette to vote on, as well as two concepts to get feedback on both concepts. True to the design process, we took input from both from those two concepts in the public engagement and came here with a preferred concept that reflects ideas from both concepts and what people wanted to see. So I'm going to kind of give a brief overview. Working from kind of the top down and beginning in the northwest corner, you'll see that dashed area on the screen. That is the planned location for a future bathroom that will have the infrastructure, as the mayor mentioned, in place during this process. That street is now closed, and that will be the access point at the northwest corner. Once you pass the library for special event vehicles, if you need to pull them onto the lawn for larger stages. For smaller events, the raised stage area directly at the top in front of the community center will suffice for smaller spaces. So it'll be a pedestrian plaza, essentially right where, almost where a little bit west of where the Arboretum entrance is into the lawn space. So it'll be pedestrian only. We've introduced in that northwest corner around the building a shaded area with outdoor benches as an amenity space. And then the lawn there is divided up, I'd say, into 3 rooms. So you have the northernmost lawn, which we identify as probably a synthetic turf of some kind, reinforced for vehicles and heavy foot traffic during major events. We have a middle lawn space that again will be an expansion of that, another area for play for children. And then we have the Veterans Memorial Lawn at the bottom, which we are not touching, but is a third, I'd say, community open space. Dividing the kind of an east-west axis running from Village Green across to the library is a linear plaza. That linear plaza has a shade structure opposite the library as an entrance feature. And we've shown on the plans where you can do movable seating, temporary shade structures, and then if as needed, let's say in the wintertime, if you want to have twinkle lights and things like that, you can do that as well. So it creates a flexible space. On the southern end, after you go a little bit further south, you'll see another plaza space. This is again area with shade structure, portable shade structures, and it's also fronting a water feature that serves as a nice transition with some small bubblers, as well as a reflecting pool that provides a nice transition into the Veterans Memorial Lawn. You'll notice we've also introduced shade trees along the corridor, along King Street, leading up to the entrance area. And the portion of King Street there to the east of the main lawn is really going to be a shared street, a curbless street concept, which will be a traffic calming mechanism. And when you have larger events, you've now unified both sides of the street and brought everything together. There's also a small area, I'd say directly south or southeast of that shade structure. It's hard to see on the screen, but it's a small parklet area, leftover green space within the public right-of-way, where we've identified areas for benches, bicycle parking and things like that. There'll be an additional amenity area, especially during large events or on normal days. So with that, the other thing I mentioned, we talked about the stage. We've noted there along the stage, which is about 4 feet tall at that point, is some kind of mural. But one of the things we heard loud and clear, both from public engagement and from our work with the task force, is what we're showing here in terms of public art is a starting point, but we'll continue to work with the Arts Council on making sure we define what those spaces are, both for this project and for future phases. So with that, I'm happy to take questions or go forward.
Talk a little bit, if you can put that back up there. Do y'all have the, what was at the bottom of our sheets that we got that show kind of the visual for the shade structures and I'd like to show everybody what that looks like. Is that on here?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there we go. Can y'all see that? So that's a view from, there you go. Y'all can zero in on that. So the one on your right is the transition from the Memorial Green to the other area, and the one on your left is the shade structure along King Street looking towards the library, correct?
That's correct.
Just, when you all put that in there, having people be able to see what we're talking about is important.
Right. So on the one on the right, you have an area where you see the small bubblers on the right. You also have seating areas and seating walls, and you have a nice defined separation between the Veterans Lawn, but the reflecting pool there. And it shows shade structures. And on the left, again, that central promenade to the library, and kind of illustrates how you could use the space in a non-major event on an everyday area, or small markets where you can actually have people interacting with vendors or just simply sitting out there and enjoying the weather.
If you can scroll back up, a lot of folks have said, with the redesign of King Street, people are going to fly through there. Can you talk a little bit about the shared street area, the raised area, and what that looks like and how that speaks to traffic calming?
Sure. So first and foremost, on the top right of the screen, you see the road continuing all the way to Powder Springs. That road already exists today, but we're linking that and making it one unified road with King Street coming around. The area, I'd say darker gray that you see in the middle part of the screen there, is a curbless street, which means you'll ramp up. You have small aprons there. You ramp up to an area that is 6 inches above normal roads. It's at the same height as the sidewalk and areas around it. It's designed in such a way, we'll design in such a way that it'll slow traffic. I mean, that's the intent of the speed table, the larger shared street concept. And to slow traffic and kind of remind people they're in an area there's a lot of pedestrian traffic and things like that. And so it's also an area for drop-off as well. We'll have a drop-off area to allow close access to the community center. So the idea is to remind people and use different types of materials to do that. So it reminds people it's not just asphalt you kind of zoom on. It reminds you whether it's a cobblestone or other kind of material. It'll remind people that they need to slow down and drive carefully. And the more people you introduce in the space, in addition to the street trees you have there, which help form a better boundary, kind of an area, a threshold to be people being very active. You'll be much more visible today. So it'll help keep people focused as drivers.
One more thing I heard, and then I'll turn it over to anybody else who has comments or questions. The raised stage area.
Yes.
I think there's some confusion. That is not going to be a permanent stage set up there. That's a platform that we can put different types of stages on, correct?
Yes, so the idea is it is a platform space, and that in smaller events you can use that as a stage. And in larger events, you can actually, when you need a larger stage area, you can bring a temporary stage that will be at the same height that you simply pull up with a vehicle and line that. But no, it's not just going to be a stage 365 days. You can use it for other facilities.
So you can have the temporary stage that the city owns, or you could have a bigger stage like we had for the birthday celebration, and every time we have 25 or 30,000 people down here, you'll be able to see all the way to the end of the Veterans Memorial.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other comments, questions for Andrew? I know we've seen this presentation several times. Mr. Lindley?
Yes, thank you, Andrew, and thank you for you and your team's work on this important matter. Could you, and the mayor sort of talked about it in his comments, but sort of set the stage in total going back to 2019, the study you've been at the helm from the get-go, so I think that would be helpful for the room.
Sure. In 2019, one of the charges we had for the Smyrna Bold Plan was to identify improvements the public wanted to see in and around the downtown Smyrna. It was a downtown master plan. So we identified a series of different components, one of them being rethinking this space here, which obviously was designed some 30 plus years ago with a roundabout, and rethinking about how to link. One of the things we heard is we have a lot of these community spaces, but they're disjointed with the roundabout, and we don't have a kind of a cohesive public space that's kind of a democratic space where people can all gather. So you have smaller spaces kind of built around, but where do you kind of bring people together? It was meant, people saw it as a way to kind of bring people downtown, to stay longer in downtown, and then ultimately that's great for economic development around downtown, build that sense of pride for downtown Smyrna. So that was the idea behind it, linking all these different spaces together. And today it's difficult to kind of move between one and the other, and you come down King Street and you have to kind of navigate the roundabout. This was an idea of cohesively bringing it all together.
Other comments, Mr. Welch?
Yeah, Andrew, can you talk about parking just a little bit? What's our net gain, net loss on parking based on your design?
I might have Greg come speak to it. He's done more of the roadway work. I can speak to you directly to that. There's parking area in front of the plan. It's not on the screen now, but there's a load-off zone parking area there, and you continue to have parallel parking working up Powder Springs Road. So I don't know, Greg, if you want to speak more to the parking, because you address more of that in your work.
Thank you. And I'm actually going to scroll up.
It's Greg, if it's based on yours, I guess I'm looking at this plan.
That's what I'm pulling up to zoom in on so everybody can see a little better here. So get it zoomed in, then I'll slide it over onto the screen. Okay. So for this plan that is before Mayor and Council for consideration tonight, there's about a net loss of about 30 spaces. So where the majority of those spaces are lost is along the King Street realignment. One of the things that we did there is now you have 90-degree parking in that parking lot area that's on the east side of the community center. We're replacing that with ADA parking spaces that are aligned with the street there to allow for better ADA parking and access to the community center.
Other questions, comments? Yeah, Greg is going to talk about, I know one of the things that we've heard a lot about is the traffic study. And so if there's no other questions for Andrew.
I guess one thing, maybe, Mr. Mayor, if it's the right spot for Andrew, just talk a little bit. We have a framework of an idea based on a lot of community input, right? And so what we would expect further revisions of this plan, refining it, I should say, selecting materials, such and such, right? Is that?
That's correct. So the typical design process for us would be once we have a refined concept, we have a general theme of where we want to go, and we've tested that concept. It's not just on GIS and aerial. We actually have surveys, so it's real. We go and take that next step to refine it, to pick those materials and the palette to make it cohesive. Part of that strategy, and we've talked about this with the task force, is continue to engage you all with that task force and bring you additional options for feedback at the task force, ones that would align with the budget and working closely with you all to make sure it's what you envisioned and what you see on the plan.
Right, right.
And I think
Thank you.
Councilman Lindley will speak to that as part of the task force and maybe the plan going forward at the appropriate time.
Don't want to step on Councilman Lindley's toes.
Well, I knew
so
that you,
don't
I knew
wanna-
that you wouldn't want to do that, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well. Mr. Teague, can you talk a little bit about the traffic study and actually talk a lot about it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Give me just a second to pull that document up. And Heather, if you could, thank you. So, as was stated earlier, the Mayor and Council requested that we, Croy Engineering, provide perform a traffic analysis for this downtown area. So, from a big picture standpoint, the traffic study consisted of going all the way on the west side down to Ward Street at Campbell High School, on Powder Springs and Bank Street both, so that was kind of the western boundary. Went all the way over to Atlanta Road. On the east side, on the north, we started at Powder Spring Street, and on the south, we went all the way down to Concord. So we really looked at that entire network, and really what we were charged at looking at is saying, okay, we've got the roundabout now at this central location here. If the implementation of removing the roundabout, extending King Street to Powder Spring Street is, what's the impact on the traffic network? What this graphic that I've got up on the screen now represents are really the areas where we saw changes. The good news is, as you look at the western intersections that we studied, we didn't see any noticeable change in traffic out at Ward Street and Powder Springs. Really what changed is how do people get from Atlanta Road to Powder Spring Street or Atlanta Road to Bank Street. Once you got onto those streets, it really didn't change that. So this graphic focuses on really those areas where we saw those changes in the traffic patterns. So one of the things that we saw, and I'm going to scroll down just a little bit here, when the roundabout is removed and you no longer can make the maneuver from Powder Spring Street through Village Green and the roundabout to get up to Atlanta Road. That traffic has to disperse either to the left on Powder Spring Street or to the right on Hamby over to Bank and then out that way. What the traffic study shows is that the vast majority of that traffic will take that left turn, go on Powder Spring Street, and come to the intersection of Powder Springs and Atlanta. That was really the major change that we saw. The only negative impact on traffic that we saw in that traffic study was seeing an increase in traffic at that intersection. So if you look at that intersection and how it functions in today's traffic conditions, which is just a stop control, there's no traffic signal at that intersection now. If you're on Powder Spring Street, you have to wait for what's called a safe gap in the traffic in order to make that left turn maneuver back towards Dobbins. So you can see in that, let me scroll up just a little more. This graphic that you see over here, you can see that those levels of service were in the E and F range. So for traffic studies, we look at a scale from A to F. E is included on this. So A being the best, F being worst on it. So in those existing conditions, if you're on that side street during those peak hours, and we determined from doing the traffic counts, we did traffic counts about 3 weeks after school was back in session to let traffic kind of normalize from there. We did Saturday traffic counts as well. And what it shows is that during those peak hours from about 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. and from about 4:30 to 5:30 p.m., it's really tough to make a safe left turn going northbound towards Dobbins. So one of the things that we took a look at was adding in a traffic signal at the intersection of Powder Springs and Atlanta. What that does is creates a safe gap in the traffic in order for that traffic to maneuver from the side street onto Atlanta Road. So as you can see, it actually improves that traffic condition, even though we have shifted additional traffic over there from the network. So really, what we're seeing in the final condition is, with the addition of the traffic signal at Powder Springs and Atlanta, it actually improves the overall traffic flow over the network. What you'll also see to kind of help support or kind of helps reinforce that is you already have a lot of delays that occur at the intersection of West Spring and Atlanta. Some of that's due to the railroad crossing there and the difficulties that causes at times, but you also have the congestion in that particular area. That also helps contribute to a much higher percentage of the traffic being diverted to Powder Spring Street, because traffic's kind of like water. It's going to follow the path of least resistance. So if you look at being at the intersection of Powder Springs and Hamby, if you've got to take a right on Hamby, take a left on Bank, take a right on King, take a left on Spring, and then get up to the traffic signal to access, or you can take the left turn, go Powder Spring Street, and get to the new traffic signal at Powder Springs and Atlanta. It's a lot less moves in traffic, and it allows for that safe gap in traffic to be able to make that particular traffic maneuver. So with that, I'll answer any questions you might have on the traffic study.
Any question? Mr. Gould?
Greg, could you go back up to Powder Springs and Atlanta Road? And you had a no-build situation in 2024?
Yes. So that shows that, explain what those are. So we analyzed 4 different conditions here. We analyzed what is it operating as today, given the existing traffic. We looked at a 2024 no build. So what that is we looked at what is your normal traffic growth pattern that you see over years. Industry standard is about 2% per year for your main roads, and about 1.5% per year for your side roads, just because there's not as much development opportunity on it. So that's just growing that baseline traffic by 2% per year and 1.5% per year on the side traffic. So the 2024 build is saying, okay, if these changes to the traffic network are included, what does that do? How does that change it? And then we also looked at it at the request of the city with if something develops in the future on the parcel to the east of the community center, and we used a generic 15,000 square foot retail center, saying that you're going to have parking right there, which would really impact that network. What would that do? And it shows that even with that, some sort of a development that happens there, it shows that the traffic network, with the addition of the traffic signal, which is the key to making this work, can adequately handle the rerouted traffic.
So wasn't something I took away from it was the no-build situation, just as we currently live with a little bit of growth, that's a F for that intersection, right? Turning left out of that currently in the current design is really challenged. So coming out of the Market Village anywhere and going north on Atlanta Road is very difficult to do unless you drive right down the street right here to the traffic light. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So regardless of what we do, this traffic light will have a positive impact on getting in and out of the Market Village area.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments for Greg?
Yeah.
Austin?
So, in the traffic study picture, you've got I know it was the original image that we had on the first plan,
Yes.
and it has the parking garage. Is the parking garage contemplated at all in the traffic study?
So it is considered both ways, and because we have the right-in, right-out entrance on Atlanta Road, and we also have a secondary connection back to Powder Springs, one of the things that's anticipated if Mayor and Council moves forward with the parking deck is that also for major events that we would have a depression in the median on Atlanta Road, similar to what you have up in front of the fire station now, that would have removable bollards in it so that the public safety could go up and allow left turns out of there. It still has an A service even if the parking deck goes in.
I think I heard you say if we move forward on the parking deck. We've already moved forward on the parking deck. It's just a matter of what size and within the budget now. Just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yes, sir.
And to be clear on another piece that we have not moved forward on with the land next to the community center, we've talked about potential things going there, but there's been no, finalized plan. You said that that was the build. Am I correct on you said the generic 15,000 square foot?
So it's the build plus development.
Plus development.
That includes a 15,000 square foot retail center. So it was just something that would, looking at the size of it, that's a reasonable size that you could expect to place on a parcel of that size. And that was just to make sure that whatever traffic might be generated from that, if it's self-parked here or what impact that would have on the network, and it was a minimal impact.
Okay.
So, Greg?
Mr. Welch has signed up to speak, I believe.
Oh.
Mr. Welch?
Yeah. Greg, a couple of questions back to this plan.
Yes, sir.
And this is, if you want me to wait on, it's not a traffic study question, it's on something else. I want to make sure that what I'm looking at here or what we are budgeting is included in this plan. The streets shown, darker streets, I guess, on that plan are included in your budget.
And Heather, if you could show the screen, that way I can kind of talk about this. So yes, the improvements that are shown on this plan, which is attached to it, are the roadway improvements, so that the budget that we'll talk about in just a minute does include the traffic signal at Powder Springs, Atlanta. It includes the widening of Powder Springs Street to accommodate a left turn lane and a right turn lane there, just so that if you have people waiting to make a left turn for the green light to make that, they can still make the right turn. It includes the reconstruction of King Street on the eastern side of the community center. The area that's kind of highlighted in green is what Andrew spoke to earlier. The cost also includes, and I should have mentioned this, we are including a budget line item to extend the left turn storage on Atlanta Road since we're putting a traffic signal in there, anticipating that you'll have a few more cars waiting on a green light. So we're extending that left turn lane to be able to turn left on Powder Springs. We're also proposing to convert Village Green into a right out only. And then with doing that, we'll close off that median opening that exists there now. And that way we focus that traffic down at the new traffic signal where we've got the signal installation to help handle that increase in traffic there. It also includes the conversion of the intersection of Bank Street and King Street to an all-way stop, which was one of the things that we looked at from just providing for safer pedestrian movements through there, including that, plus the things that Andrew covered on his slide previously.
Lastly, I guess, tell me what is included in the budget as far as architectural improvements or handicap access into the community center? I mean, we have right now, the primary access into the community center for handicap access is what I guess I'm going to call the southern, that faces the roundabout. Is everything included in there to eliminate that and bring a handicap access to what I'm going to call the east along King Street, as far as architectural services and improvements to the community center?
So Heather, if I could trouble you to bring the screen up one more time, I'm going to actually use Andrew's plan to detail this a little better. So as you mentioned, the drop-off area that is currently in front of the community center would be where the stage area is shown here. What we're going to do is where King Street is now and where you have the parking area on the east side of the community center, part included in this budget is the elevation of the roadway so that you have basically a 2% grade, which meets ADA standards, from this drop-off area that you see over here. This will be handicap parking drop-off area here, and this will be a 2% sidewalk going all the way to the front of the community center. So right now, if you're familiar with the front of the community center, you have about 4 or 5 steps, 3 or 4 steps that are in front of it now. The stage area will actually raise up to where it eliminates those steps. So we won't have the steps there anymore. You won't have the need for a handicap ramp. You'll just be able to have access directly from these parking spaces up a 2% slope all the way into the front door. Additionally, we are continuing to elevate the roadway on the eastern side of the community center. There's actually 4 doors that are on the east side of the community center now that go to different portions of the building. We're going to raise the roadway up so that we can also have that ADA access to any of those doors. We're not including any modifications to the building, but we want to give the city the option to be able to utilize those doors for handicap access or for loading, unloading purposes if needed.
All right, and I missed something there where you show, no, I see it now. It's shown on your plan, shown as handicap drop-off access. Those are not parking spaces, but those are drop-off, is that correct?
That'll be up to the city to decide. We can include those as parking spaces or include it as a drop-off area like you currently have now. So it'll be a decision for mayor and council.
And nothing changes with the handicap accessibility on the north end of the community center as it sits today.
That's correct. One other thing from a handicap accessibility standpoint is the ramp that you see over here kind of in this northwest corner going back down towards the library. We are going to, that'll be a little steeper over there, but it will meet ADA standards on that. So it'll be more of your kind of like a ramp with a platform and then a ramp down to the area between there. So now what this will also provide is handicap access directly between the community center and the library without having to go around, which you don't have currently.
Any other questions on the traffic study? Ms. Wilkinson.
Yes, thank you. So I wanted to ask you if you could speak on the morning AM traffic from, a standpoint. I do observe a lot of cars using the traffic circle at that time. Probably a lot of people that live in the neighborhood leaving to go to work, and possibly also people that are dropping off their kids at the high school. And that's when, I've really observed a lot. So those cars, I guess, will be probably going out toward the light. And I guess my concern is, if you could speak to that in terms of what you saw in the traffic study and the number of cars and the wait time there at the light, and also how many cars will be able to line up there where the two lanes, where it goes into 2 lanes.
Yes, ma'am. And Heather, if I could trouble you one more time to flip the screen for me. I'm giving you all the credit. So one of the things that we saw with the rerouting of the traffic, the most efficient traffic movement you can have is a right-hand turn. So for the AM traffic headed towards the school to do drop-offs, what we saw is that as you come down Powder Springs, everybody's making the right turn to head there that was going that way already. that's actually a more efficient turn movement than you have now of coming through the roundabout, going straight through the all-way stop. So it actually improved that traffic mobility there. For the left turns coming back to access to Atlanta Road, we've got stacking distance here for about 5 or 6 cars to stack up to the left for in order to still have enough room to come around for somebody to be able to make a right turn here. So that was more than adequate for the amount of traffic we saw. Because like we said, we saw the peak time was around 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. was the peak that was observed from the existing baseline traffic. So that's what we analyzed as saying, all right, in that worst case, that worst hour, the most congested hour, what was it looking like? And we had a level of service A operation on the intersection.
And then as far as the timing at the light on Atlanta Road, will that be, I mean, what, you know, the wait time there with the morning traffic coming south on Atlanta Road, and then also those folks wanting to get out and either take a right or a left? What will the wait time be at that light?
So the wait times will be coordinated with the existing traffic platooning that you see on Atlanta Road for those AM peaks. So it'd be very similar to what you see at Spring Street currently, in that the one thing that'll help is you're dispersing the traffic between the two intersections, so you'll have a little less backup as far as the number of cars stacked there. But I think the cycle length on that's about a little over a minute that you would wait if you got there right as the light changed. But your average delay that you see for it, as you can see in the traffic study, was about even in the worst case conditions, a little under 8 seconds is what the average delay would be.
And when you said dispersed, what other area were you thinking about? I thought I heard you say Spring Street, and were you thinking about King and Concord, or where?
So one of the things that we saw with the addition of this traffic signal here is that allows an additional option for the existing traffic. So instead of just having either the light at King and Concord or the light at West Spring and Atlanta, this gives another area. So what this will do is help kind of balance out the load that you see on those and giving people another safe access onto those major roadways.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Glenn, I saw you had signed up to speak, and then now you're not signed up. Did you? Oh, she got it. Okay. Anybody else want to have any questions for Greg? All right. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. Now we'll open it up for citizen comments. And again, the comments need to pertain to what we are voting on here tonight, which is the replacement of the roundabout and the fountain with the interactive green space and the traffic light. Several folks are signed up to speak. I have 3 pages of folks, and I know that there's people out there too that have not signed up. So I'm going to be strict about keeping everybody to 2 minutes. If you're less than that, that's great. So we'll start off with Christopher Melstrom, 3551 South Sherwood. And when you come up, if you'll just state your name and address for the record, and then make your comments, please. Good evening.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Melstrom. I live on 355 South Sherwood Road in Smyrna, Georgia. I just want to say that I think this project is well overdue. I love the fact that we're thinking of how we are growing and how Smyrna is growing, and from the celebration we just had. I was just thinking of this plan as we were sitting out there and we were trying to see the stage and we were trying to interact with our children and everybody around us, and it was very hard because of the roundabout. So I just want to say thank you for putting this plan forward. I totally support it. Am I allowed to ask a question?
Sure.
What's the timeline that we're looking at?
That might be a question for the engineers and designers, but from what I've heard, it's early 23, sometime early 23.
Correct. Once it's approved by Mayor and Council, we would begin the design process on it, so that construction would be probably, I would say, March, April timeframe. You would start seeing some of the major construction begin on it, and then completion in early 2023, like springtime 2023.
Okay.
Okay, that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being brief. That's great. Richard Pecha, Brown Circle.
Richard Petcha, 2667 Brown Circle. In no way can it be said that this plan is an absolute necessity or a need. You've talked about what you're going to do with these millions of dollars from the magic money tree rather poorly, as most people I talk to know nothing or know something but very little about that. You mentioned the word hundreds when speaking of the positive response of citizens. I believe there are in the neighborhood of 60,000 people in Smyrna. You have not told the citizens that Smyrna will have half the population it now used to have, a very good hospital. And though we are soon to be the most populous city in the county, we don't have a hospital now. Apparently no magic money for that. The library hours were cut significantly back in the last downtown, and it was well used for those hours by the citizens of Smyrna. Again, no magic money available. Many, if not most, of the library staff are part-time. No magic money to pay a decent wage and benefits. Ditto for any other part-timers. Ditto for a police department where recently several officers left for better jobs elsewhere. Ditto as an article in the Atlanta paper several months ago interviewing department heads in Cobb cities, including Smyrna, who all said they were exceedingly short of workers. Some supervisors had to drive their own trucks. Tolleson Park programs were numerically scaled back as the city was short of employees to run them. Magic money still can't be found. One of the main duties of a city is to keep our property taxes low. For the first time in my 42 years here, I got an anniversary present of a $42 charge for resident lighting. There are 25,000 households in Smyrna, which makes about $1 million added to the city coffers every year that the city never needed before. Where's the magic money for that? Smyrna used to have a leaf truck and twice-a-week garbage. It might agree that they were overpriced. Again, where's the magic money for that? How could one say that you don't have the money when you've got the money for this?
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Castrovetti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for having me today. My family and I are very excited about this development. We've been looking forward to this when we moved to Smyrna 3-4 years ago. Need a place to take our kids, and we're excited about it. I do want to take this time to thank Councilman Lindley. He has been very transparent throughout this whole process. And thank you for always taking the time and returning texts and phone calls. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Joseph Blankenship. Again, if you'll state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Joseph Blankenship, 1403 Wedmore Way here in Smyrna. My wife and I are Smyrna residents. We love coming down here to enjoy events like we just had the birthday celebration. I can tell you we had to stand up on the edge of a curb down here to watch the gin blossoms this past weekend. It was a little uncomfortable. I'm really looking forward to having some nice green space down here. We are definitely for this redevelopment plan. We'd like to thank the mayor and the council for allowing all these opportunities to come out, provide public comment, give you our feedback on what's being planned here. But I definitely think this is a good investment with our downtown area. It's going to attract visitors. It's going to attract new residents to Smyrna, increase our property values, which will increase our tax base, and attract new businesses, which is much needed down here in the downtown area. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Ms. Sean Martin, Williams Park.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm from 2884 Anderson Circle. I have 5 reasons why you might consider not voting for this. Number 1, in the graphics that we've seen, there's been at least 4 versions of the site plan. We pay professional fees. Our taxpayer dollars do pay for full services. The least that could be done is that all of those drawings reflect the same information. Number two, you are not reporting the full story in the media. Please stop doing that. Number three, council, you are not holding this mayor accountable to his role in the city. As a result, we will pay. Number four, the process is flawed and goes against best management practices for city planning. Cities are not planned in silos. To not bring in the desired brewery at this point is unfair. As much of taxpayer dollars that are going into facilitating and accommodating all of the accessory needs. And number five, you say the traffic study is based on a 5,000 square foot retail facility. Retail is very different than bars and restaurants. Bars and restaurants require a higher number of people in those spaces. I say, please do not vote for this project. It is not the due diligence that Smyrna needs, and I implore you to please reconsider. Thank you.
Mr. Robert Harrison, 2889 Alexander Street. Robert Harrison. Take 20 seconds off of Robert's time.
Robert Harrison, Alexander Street. I was at the birthday celebration. What an amazing concert that was. The vibe there was great. And I've been going to concerts downtown for 20 years. And for 20 years, it's been really weird because at least half the people can't see the stage. So this is sorely needed. It's a bold move, but it's time for that. We need to move forward with some corrections to the original design that had it close, but let's take it to the last step. The renderings tonight that had the shade structure with the swings under it, I think that's a great idea. I love that. Just a reminder that bike racks and park benches can also be artistic. They don't have to be ordered out of a catalog. So we would love to see some more art, but thank you for at least considering spaces for public art in the new plan. It really is exciting. I think this is the injection we need to keep the city moving forward. So thank you for considering that.
Mr. Michael Power.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Michael Power. I live at 1020 Kieran Court, Smyrna, Georgia. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I would like to just say thank you for the transparency that's been involved in this process. I think there's been numerous public comment opportunities as well as public events outlaying this plan. I think what's been put online and put out there in the public has been very clear and consistent, and so I thank you for that effort and that opportunity as the citizen to weigh in here tonight. I do live over in Ward 4. Corky, I really appreciate your leadership over the years, and look forward to continuing to work with you here in the city of Smyrna. But I am actively involved in this community, whether it be through Keep Smyrna Beautiful, the Smyrna Soccer League, the West Smyrna Swim and Tennis Pool, a number of opportunities here. There's been a lot of discussion about this, and it's all been positive. And for many of the reasons that people have spoken tonight. I have 4 young children. We were at the concert a couple weeks ago. We think this could be a tremendous opportunity to not only enhance our community, but bring in new economic opportunities as well as beautification. And so we thank you for the leadership on this project, and I urge all of you to vote yes tonight on this. This is, I think, a critical step in moving Smyrna forward. Thank you.
Miss Maryline Blackburn, Ward 3.
Good afternoon. Maryline Blackburn, 1034 Huntington Trace Drive. I speak to you as a co-founder of Sustainable Smyrna and a former member of this city council. Sustainable Smyrna was created 4 years ago to work with the city on sustainability, which is not hugging trees, but the combination of environmental protection, which is like recycling, prevention of degradation of landscape and ecosystems, economic development, which is initiatives that improve infrastructure, enhance our education system, better our public safety, improve and enhance our educational system, and then also social equity. Social equity, impartiality, fairness, and justice for all people in social policy. Now, all three work hand in hand to balance each other. Sustainable Smyrna supports those political figures and candidates and issues that support sustainability, inclusivity, and diversity in the community. As we have looked at this current redevelopment plan, Sustainable Smyrna takes issue with the process and transparency. During my time on council, I made sure that the actions of the city council followed due process in all steps leading to our council's decisions with transparent and engaging the community. However, unfortunately, this is not the case with this council, this city council, excluding Councilwoman Wilkinson and Councilman Welch. Now, there goes our diversity and inclusion right there. The process does not meet the letter nor spirit of law. It doesn't even pass the smell test. The Design and Detail Task Force Committee, in which was put together, consists of 5 council members and citizens all handpicked by Mr. Norton, and in my opinion, simply rubber stamping this redevelopment plan instead of looking at other ways in which this funding can assist other areas in our community that need
Thank you,
it,
Ms. Blackburn.
i.e. Council
Thank you, Ms. Blackburn.
Ward 5.
Next, we have Mr. Jay Wallace.
I've been in business here for pushing 50 years. And I've watched the city grow, and I've seen it come a long way. I've watched it from the retail store with hundreds of shoes stacked up in the window. I watched Mayor Bacon make a stance to improve the city and look at what was needed. I see what you're doing today is taking what Mayor Bacon and council started and improving it. It's an area that's obviously was not the main concern of what we were trying to do. We're trying to compete with other cities and make Smyrna the best city it can be. And that's what you guys are doing, and I'd like for you to vote yes today. Thank you.
Jay, thank you for all you do for our veterans and for the Legion and all the other things you support in our community. Mr. Mike Smith.
Mike Smith, 203 Anglo Drive. First of all, I want to say thank you to the mayor, the council, Pond and Company for all the work that you've put in to make this redesign become a reality. My family and I attended the birthday celebration just a few short weeks ago, and while it was the best celebration yet, the sight lines to the stage were less than ideal. I think anybody that was in attendance would say, you've heard that here tonight. Coming from over a 15-year experience in the live event industry, I feel like I can confidently say that having a designated stage area with sight lines for everyone will have a better overall experience for further future birthday celebrations, and not just the ones who could get there early and find a good seat or get a table or whatever the case may be. I also want to add, as a father of 2 small kids, I'm really excited about all the green space and pedestrian-friendly areas coming to downtown. It's going to improve our ability to play, feel more confident about letting our kids run around, and be more of a community and host birthday parties and things down here to have fun and be a part of the city here in Smyrna. Again, thanks for all your hard work to make this a reality, and I urge you please vote yes for the proposal tonight. Thank you.
Ms. Montserrat Knowlton, 1367 Poplar Point.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, tonight I am very upset that Councilman Louis Whitten cannot be with us. I was hoping that that the vote would be stopped in this consideration. And doesn't look like the feelings of a co-councilman are important here, but they are important to the people. I just want to talk about the plan. I've also heard lots of stories about this and that. I'm going to talk about Pond. They had option 1 and option 2. They had open houses. They had time to gather all the information, all the comments. These comments are paid by the city. The city has told us that you all don't have it, that they don't have those comments. We have asked Pond to supply us with the comments, and they have not replied. Things that are very, very simple to pinpoint was the restrooms. That was something that people wanted. Option 1 and option 2 didn't have restrooms. People at the open houses demanded restrooms, okay? The preferred concept plan has a dotted line where there might be some restrooms. This is something that was promised to the people. It's important to the people.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Scott and Kristen Carlisle.
Scott Carlisle, Kirsten Carlisle, 1115 Bank Street.
We don't make a
You need to
microphone
make
that
it
goes
bigger,
up there.
Mayor.
You can just hold it up like that.
Regardless of what people think, there's not magic money or a money tree in the backyard of small business owners. And evidence of that is a recent closing of a Zagat-rated restaurant right here in the village. This process, this entire program and what's going on is going to breathe life back into small businesses. You look at Mr. Alvarez sitting up front right over here, Mr. Wallace. These are people that give money back to the community in the form of the Public Safety Foundation, American Legion, different things we're talking about. Small business is extremely important in this community. And this program is going to breathe life back into those small businesses.
And as a small business owner, I look every day, and I have children, as I own a preschool. We cross this and we use this area every single day, and to have pedestrian-friendly areas, less traffic, it's incredibly important. It's wonderful knowing we live 2 blocks away and our 3 small children of our own can walk and we can enjoy this area. And I think it's wonderful, and thank you.
Mr. Eddie Carter.
Hello, I'm Eddie Carter. I live on 1095 Church Street. I've lived there, 15 years, tore down a house, built a new one. A member of my family, or myself, have lived on that street since 1947. And I've seen a lot of things come and go around here, just like everyone else. I'm a big fan of Max Bacon, as most of you know. I think he did a wonderful thing here, got it all started, and it's time for y'all to pick up the ball and keep on going. So I've been pulled in each direction. It's almost like a civil war. I hear it all. I read it on Instagram, Facebook. That, by God, that next door thing is terrible, people. And I can assure you, I've got to know these gentlemen. Very fond of everyone up here that I've known, got to know for a while. You know, if you believe everything you read, they're trying to steal our land. And that's not the case. They're trying to make it better. I don't see one reason why this shouldn't go forward. And I look forward to it. Thank you, guys.
Miss Christy Anderson, Creekwood Circle.
I'm Christy Anderson from 1081 Creekwood Circle here in Smyrna. Been a resident for about 25 years. I am not opposed to change at all. We can't grow without change, and I appreciate all the hard work done by everyone to start this process. My biggest concern is that while this process started, many people were unaware of this because we were all focused on what was going on in the world with COVID, taking care of our homes and our families. So forgive us if we weren't as plugged in as we should have been, and we feel a little blindsided. We have almost 60,000 citizens in Smyrna, and 9 hours of citizen input does not seem sufficient to me to gather enough public input for a project of this size. I am concerned about the ADA access and the ADA parking or lack thereof. I would like to see that be investigated further, maybe by meeting with people who are directly affected by this. Out of respect for Councilman Wheaton, and out of respect for the citizens who have not had a chance to know about this and really had their input, considering one of the sessions was held during a very sacred time for the Jewish community, I would like to request that this be tabled for some additional citizen input, maybe a traffic study by a nonpartisan party that, maybe not the Fox and the Hen House kind of thing, but somebody totally impartial, and table this until some additional information can be gathered and our Councilman Wheaton can be back for his vote. Thank you.
Karen and Sean Garcia. Great shirt.
Hello. Yes, thank you. So we are the owners of Smyrna Swag, which is what a lot of people are talking about, a small business focused on Smyrna. That's our whole product. We really love it here. We live at 3393 Campbell Road, also known as Highway Campbell. People speed through that cut through a lot. But we have been really happy here, and we're really excited for the future. I appreciate how thoughtful and deliberate this whole process has been, and how heard we have felt in wanting something that we can go to that's not the Battery, and it's not really far away from where we live. We could walk here. We appreciate this area. We love it here. We hope that you vote yes. That's our vote. Go ahead, honey.
I just want to thank you to the council and Mayor Glenn. You've been very responsive on any social media platform that I've reached out to, and I really do appreciate that. And I'm all for this. We're going to grow. There's no doubt we're going to grow. We're a great city, and to compete with everyone else, we have to do something like this. I'm all for it. Yes.
Glenn, don't let your head get too big, okay? Cat Sellers, Ward 5.
Hi, yeah, I'm Katarina Sellers. I live on 2798 Stone Creek Road. I've been here for over 6 years, and I came here because I was within walking distance. That's why I choose my home, to the village green, and that was the selling point, because I really, really was intrigued by the way it looks actually right now. So you can tell I'm not convinced about the current plan. For a few reasons, just try to mention a few. As it involves destroying rather than improving already beautiful award-winning design. Old does not always equal ugly, as you can see with me. Also, and you might not want to hear this word right now, but this plan is made in conjunction of selling prime public land along Atlanta Road behind the community center to a beer manufacturing facility. And with that, we are spending more tax dollars on a parking deck. And I'm not convinced about this plan because there was no consideration made of what can be done with that property that is up for sale to the brewery. How this land could be used to improve the village green area. So We need sustainability. We need true green spaces, not artificial turf that accommodates trucks hauling beer to be distributed along the region. And we need a downtown that serves all people of all ages, not only those that are old enough to drink alcohol. Thank you. So please, I ask to either table this vote or vote against it. Thank you.
Mr. Ken Himes, Innisbrook.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ken Himes. I live at 151 Innisbrook Drive. Let me first start out by saying I don't think anyone here is opposed to change for change itself, but it's more about the how and the what of that change. I take a particular distaste with the statements by the mayor around overwhelming support for this project. I mean, if you look around you, it's a house divided, right? So that's either disingenuous or, as the kids call it, it's a half-truth. I'm not sure which. But where there's one half-truth, there's probably several. So when you start digging around, you have to ask yourself, well, if I look at the budget, there's only a 10% contingency on the cost of materials. And in this current environment, that's a ridiculously low figure. Any person with common sense would know that. Secondly, if you look at things like plans around environmental studies, right? What's going to happen with the drainage and rainwater plan if we do this construction as proposed today? I can tell you one thing, without a plan, you're just guessing. You have no clue. Thirdly, where does this whole development fit into what I would call Smyrna's strategic plan? If you do something over here today and something over there tomorrow, there's no way that you know it's all going to fit together and work for the good of the citizens. And so with all of those points, there's enough questions being raised here that any reasonable person would say, let's pause and hit the brakes and reconsider and do a little more due diligence and fact-finding. Facts, not feelings, and not ego. Fact-finding to resolve these issues and do what's in the best interest of the citizens of Smyrna. I respectfully submit that to you for consideration this evening.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Derek Porter, Pastor Porter.
Hey guys, Derek Porter, I'm the senior pastor of Smyrna First United Methodist Church. You will remember that it was 14 months ago that I addressed you as you passed the non-discrimination order. That took a tremendous amount of courage, that took a tremendous amount of foresight on your part. I watched you fight through that, work your way through that to make sure you're doing the right thing. And I've been able to watch you doing the right thing in this and doing it with integrity and doing it with foresight for this community. And I look forward to supporting this and looking forward to being a part of you continuing to move us forward. Thank you.
Mr. Andrew Welch, Cumberland Parkway. Is Andrew here? Okay. Tanya Brinkley.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you just a bit. I appreciate what you've done here this evening. I've learned a lot more and am less skeptical about the plan. But I would still like you all to consider delaying tonight's vote, please. Our councilwoman, my councilwoman, Ward 5, had requested the results of the city downtown redesign feedback survey. While you have published the redesign late last week, I saw it on Friday, you did not publish citizen comment numbers and feedback. And this influences a lot of people. It influences how I look at things. It influences how what has happened here tonight has influenced me greatly. I'm more in favor, but I'm also still skeptical. I'm skeptical about the budget. It doesn't seem to add up. I'm skeptical about the ancillary costs, such as engineering studies, design fee, and other costs not yet identified. The current means of communicating with the public, I think, is inadequate. I'm really wondering if you will perhaps, along with considering not voting this evening, but that you will consider perhaps returning to the newsletter that we used to have. I think you all have done a great job, and I've realized tonight that you have been working on this forever. But I wasn't aware, and a lot of the people that I've heard from tonight aren't aware. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Jill Gordon Evans, Hickory Acres.
Hi, I'm Jill Gordon Evans, 371 Hickory Acres. I'm in Susan's ward. I am kind of on the fence. I think there are good points being made for and against. I am for moving forward with redesign, but I did hear, coming from the people from Pond as well as the people on the mayor and council, the word refined, and it's an ongoing thing to be refined with the design. And I think it's important not to get rid of the green space that is right at Atlanta Road, where there's consideration to sell that to a private company who happens to be a brewery. I think that why would you sell something that is in such high demand, that is such a rarity? And why would you, if you're going to close off the streets, put artificial turf? The drawings are green, but there's the artificial surface under there. I know there's a lot of upkeep with maintenance, but it's not soft, it's not friendly, it's not great for when you put a blanket down. I think you really need to reconsider and refine the plan to sell that land, because once somebody builds something on it, whether it's retail or a restaurant, it's going to be very difficult to get that back. I think there is a way for both sides to meet in the middle. I love beer. I would love to see a brewery someplace. I like the Growler store, but I think that Smyrna really needs to cherish that space and reconsider the sale of that to a private entity, because I think it will compromise what you're trying to achieve by paying so much money to Pond to come up with this plan. So I urge you to consider further refining your plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Slade Gullidge.
Slade Gullidge, 1355 Twin Oaks Circle, Smyrna, Georgia. I live in Forest Hills. My wife and I moved here in 1997, and one thing that we've been struck by over this years is visionary leadership. It took visionary leadership to build this building. It took visionary leadership to build the Market Village, and it takes visionary leadership to bring forward a plan like this tonight. And I really appreciate you doing that, and I hope you vote for it. Thank you.
Mr. Keith Bentley.
Good evening. I'm Keith Bentley. I live at 2651 Gilbert Street. And I just wanted to say my wife and I moved here about 15 years ago. We were living in Lilburn, Georgia, in Gwinnett County. We raised our family. It's a great place to raise kids and good schools and all that. But we were looking for a lifestyle change. I worked downtown at the time, and I wanted to cut my commute, which was horrible from out in Lilburn. So we looked around, and we didn't know much about Smyrna. and I saw some article that was about the Market Village. I said, well, let's take a ride over there and take a look. And needless to say, we were very impressed. And this is 15 years ago. And most of the little towns we were looking at around the perimeter were thinking about doing something. They maybe had a plan. They were going to build something one day, maybe redevelop downtown one day. But Smyrna already had it. And it was exactly what we were looking for. In Lilburn, everything was car-oriented. There was no place we could walk. You went anywhere, you had to get in your car and go, and I hated that. So we were looking for a place where we could walk and get to know our neighbors a little better, go to restaurants and shops. And we found a house we liked in Williams Park over here, and our dream was realized. So we went from a real car-oriented place to a very people-oriented place. And I think that's a big thing Smyrna has going for it for a long time. So this project we're talking about now, we're talking about taking out a roundabout and basically turning it into a park. So we're going from a more traffic-oriented thing to a more people-oriented thing. And I think that's a huge step in the right direction. Just kind of keeps building on what Smyrna has been for a long time. And I appreciate all of y'all who have spent a lot of time on this. And I know you're all dedicated people. You're elected people, and you try to represent the interest of the city and do what you think is best for the city. And I respect you all for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The last person we have signed up this evening is Mr. Mike Mitchell.
Guys, happy Monday.
If you were asleep, you won't be in a minute.
For the record, hashtag Smyrna is fabulous. Mike Mitchell, 1181 Church Street. And I'd like to start by thanking you guys. I agree with my friends Eddie and my friends Mikey. I love you guys. I love this concept. I love what you've done. You've gotten a lot of feedback. So have all of us. And the feedback that I've gotten always ends with a little piece of nostalgia. There's a lady in this room who is a huge non-supporter of this. And what she told me was, the last thing she said when we talked is, my little granddaughter discovered Santa Claus at this roundabout. You guys, nostalgia does not mean conclusion. We've all formed memories over there. My out life started at that roundabout. My relationship ended at that roundabout. But they're memories, and they didn't conclude. A lot of people want this. A lot of people want you to vote yes for very, very specific reasons. My reasons are very specific. I love Smyrna. Each and every one of you knows that. I believe Smyrna is a great place to live. And I believe the connectivity makes it better. Two of my best friends are here tonight. They live in Smyrna. I met them because of the connectivity of the Smyrna Market Village. That's how I met them. I consider them two of my best friends. Anything we can do to strengthen our connectivity is a good thing. Anything we can do to strengthen our community is a good thing. Anything we can do to make that space safer is a good thing. You guys have worked really, really hard. We're all very proud of you. We really, really are. Even the people who oppose you are very proud of the work you've done. But you got to vote yes. You got to vote yes.
Thank you. That concludes our citizen input. I'm going to turn it over now to the chairman of the Details Task Force, the Downtown Details Task Force, Mr. Travis Lindley, for opening comments, and then we'll entertain. No, I've got everybody that signed up for the Downtown Redevelopment Details sign-up sheet. I have a sign-up sheet for folks who would like to speak at the end of the meeting. And I would entertain, if you would like to speak now, I'll entertain that before I turn it over to Chairman Lindley. Or okay. Okay. If you'll state your name and address for the record, please.
And I'll be 2 minutes. So I'm Jean Mankey. I live at 3388 Pretty Branch Drive. I'm also the chairman for the Smyrna Tree Committee, and I'm also the Ward 6 representative for the Tree Committee. So I am a tree hugger, given the Blackburn.
Thank you for your service.
Thanks for appointing me. So 2 things. I have a comment and I have a request. My comment is, and a thank you for considering the large trees along King Street and for planting 23 additional trees. But I'm sad to see all the gigantic trees that are going to come down in the roundabout. And I just need to make that a point, or I wouldn't be the chair of the tree committee, correct? But secondly, my request is, I think the city has a really good opportunity to make a positive move. I know the landscape plan hasn't been developed yet, but I would really request from the council and the city to consider doing something innovative with that landscape plan and make sure that native plants and trees are planted, that we are planting things that support the environment in a positive way. A lot of cities and states are doing that. As an example, the state of Minnesota is paying people to plant bee-friendly yards instead of putting grass in. So if that could be a consideration in the landscaping of this area to help support and feed the bees, birds, and the butterflies.
Thank you for your comments. All right, with that, we will turn it over to Councilman Lindley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a lifetime Smyrna native, and I would note the only Smyrna native in this government, something that my colleagues love to always hear me say.
You don't have to brag.
It is a great privilege to serve my community through this council. My family and I can attest to the vast changes in this community. Much has changed over the last 28 years since the downtown revitalization began. In fact, very little is the same as it was in 1993. In this building alone, on the various halls and floors, there are various versions of what the downtown was to look like when it was completed. None of them look like it does today. As with our community, it has evolved, and just as officials did in the early 1990s, we're obligated to listen to the calls for change and this redesign. I proudly serve Ward 3, which includes downtown. I've received many calls for redesign, calls for more reasons to stay in Smyrna, to stay in our community, things to do in our downtown. I believe we have a charge to listen to the majority and always be looking forward. I wish to thank the members of the Downtown Redesign Task Force for their work. This group included subject matter experts that met 6 times. 2 initial concepts were offered by Pond and Company as a starting point. The task force was charged to develop a final plan for recommendation following public input. As the task force placed enormous emphasis on public engagement. Over 9 hours of in-person public comment were held. 9 days of online public comment were collected. And I would note, council received a total package and what those comments were, contrary to some of the comments that have been made this evening. Aside from this effort, there have been many opportunities to engage in virtually all forms. The concept before council tonight is in line with the results of the BOLD study and the majority of public comment and messages we've received. As noted, but I want to state it again, if passed tonight and we proceed forward, the work of the task force has just begun, just as the work has begun for the folks at Pond and Company and Croy Engineering. There are many details to determine as we go forward. On a personal note, like many, I attended the Saturday, October 9th city birthday celebration. According to the Marietta Daily Journal, 25,000 of our friends and neighbors gathered to celebrate this great community. This is yet another example of the growth and opportunities we have here in Smyrna. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'll yield to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Lindley. Ms. Wilkinson has signed up to speak. And let me just say thank you for your diligence and your work guiding that committee. I want to reiterate they spent a lot of time putting the recommendations together and getting public input, so I thank them for that. Ms. Wilkinson.
Thank you. My name's still up there from earlier, but I did want to speak with this item as well. I will say that the pond study was voted on with the consultant to do the BOLD study in 2019, and then the beginning early on in 2020, we started sheltering in place in March of 2020, and I believe some of the public, one of the public meetings that was supposed to happen didn't happen because of the virus and the COVID virus and the sheltering in place. But they did their study, and then the draft study presentation was presented to the council on August the 13th of 2020. And that night, we were told that that was a high-level study and it was meant to start the conversation, and that nothing was written in stone. And from my standpoint and serving on the council, we didn't actually talk about that study anymore, and that we were presented. It was, we never voted on, it was a draft plan, and the council never voted to approve the draft study, nor did we vote for any portion, to move forward on any portion of the draft study. And the next time I saw something about it was on June 3rd, when we saw the plan that Croy had done, and then from there, it was I believe the next day it was in the paper and on social media, and then the June 8th was a public input meeting, and another one on June 14th, I think it was. That being said, then we voted, and then it was voted on June 21st. So the present plan that the pond presented tonight, I actually think there's a lot of good elements in it, and I like that. But I think from the beginning, we never saw another concept. And I believe if we had have talked about other concepts, I think there could have been something out there that could have helped merged the groups of people. I do think we have a house divided, and I think that we never saw another concept, but I do believe that we could have developed something that would have really been something that everybody would have liked. So I just feel like that part of that process, that we missed some vital steps right from the beginning to get the plan for everyone. And I do think that there's some refreshing that needs to be done in the downtown. I don't disagree with that. As a representative of Ward 5, and knowing that there was a study done of South Cobb Drive in 2017, I do have some concerns with this being a combined line item on the SPLOST of almost 13 million. I hear the mayor saying that there was 6.5 divided between each one of the downtown and the South Cobb Drive. That was never communicated with me before, and I know that with the bond that was passed, there was 3.5 million that was supposed to be for both South Cobb Drive and the downtown plan. And then when the presentation was done on the 21st, I believe it was a 2.5 million for the green space. And I looked at that, like the total budget for South Cobb and the downtown, and I believe that South Cobb Drive really deserves more funding than just 50% of that. And I have concerns that once we get started into this project, I know that it's already at 6.5, maybe even a little bit more than that. And then with some of the things that were mentioned that weren't part of that 6.5, I have concerns that we're going to be going over that, and then it's going to jeopardize the South Cobb Drive study. I think it's early in the SPLOST process, and I think that We really don't know yet about the additional funds that we might receive from the federal and state government, or if we'll receive any. And I think that we could have done something in both locations. I'm just concerned about that in the long run. And I also have the experience of serving on the council early on, and the city reaching out to both state and federal government to get assistance with this Windy Hill Road Boulevard project. They had reached out for funding for the intersection of South Cobb Drive and Windy Hill Road, and the city was denied. They never received any funding from the state or the federal government to help with that project. And so I have seen that side of it as well, where it didn't happen. And that also caused some difficulties in that intersection, and also difficulties for the residents that live around that area. So anyway, I'm disappointed about the funds and the way they're divided up. And with that, I yield.
Mr. Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I think most of you in here know that I don't support the construction of this project. I've made no bones about it throughout the course of our negotiations and battles back and forth. It's a good plan. Croy Engineering and Pond have done a great job of putting a plan together and presenting it to the public and to the city. I simply don't believe that the changes are needed. The existing downtown is less than 30 years old. And does it need to be updated and some changes made and some repairs made? Absolutely. But to go into the area with a bulldozer and just wipe out the downtown design that literally was responsible for putting Smyrna on the map 30 years ago, I can't support that. It's not good government. There's a contingent of people that are supportive of the demolition and redevelopment, and we just have a difference of opinion. Most of them were not here when the revitalization of Smyrna occurred. My wife and I were. I'm a 41-year resident of Smyrna at this point. My wife is a native. Most of them, don't understand. Most of the people in Smyrna now don't understand what Smyrna, what the feeling among people outside of Smyrna was towards Smyrna before this revitalization that occurred some 30 years ago. We were a little podunk town with the redneck capital of the country, and it was quoted as being such. This revitalization literally, as I said, put us on the map and made us something different than what we were perceived as. Most of the people on this council, I know Travis is a native. Certainly he's the only one that was a native, and I don't know of anyone else that was here, Susan, and other than Susan and I, 30 years ago when this happened. And I could be wrong. If y'all were here 30 years ago, let me know. The mayor was. So, that's the part of the reason that I'm not supportive of it. But here's the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. The project we're voting on here tonight was originally presented to the City Council, not in 2019, but this project that we're looking at, a close resemblance of was presented to the council on June the 3rd. Public meetings were held immediately after that on June the 8th and June the 14th for a vote the following week. I didn't support that vote. It was a 5-2 vote, and Ms. Wilkinson and I voted against it. The budget that was presented was originally $6.5 million. That plan included everything you see here tonight, plus, I apologize, that plan included a 250-car parking deck, or at least a parking deck, demolition of the existing records building, and restrooms in the traffic circle park area. And most everything that you see here tonight that wasn't added by the committee that Mr. Lindley founded, and I think that committee did a good job of it. It basically added $3 million to the project, which is in scope creep, and we have to deal with that. But latest budget presented in the AJC, the MDJ, and the patch, and, you know, it's quoted by some mayor and council members here, was $5.7 million. And that sounds great. You know, the original budget was $6.5 million. The latest budget's $5.5 million, $800,000 savings. Wow, that's great. Let's go. But that's not the budget of this project. It doesn't include the parking deck that was originally shown on June 3rd to the citizens out there. It doesn't include the restrooms in the park area down here that was originally shown on June the 3rd. And it doesn't include any engineering. It doesn't include the demolition of the records building where the parking deck is going to have to go. And those things add up. It's estimated at $6.5 million, same as the original budget now, because you add the $5.8 million that they're saying, $5.7 million it's going to cost, plus the $800,000 in engineering fees, is a $6.5 million project that we're looking at on the board today. But it doesn't include those other items. I've gone back and I've estimated that, and make everybody understand I've been in the civil engineering business for 40 years. My budget, I got $6.5 million for phase one. That's the total of phase one. That is, I think everybody has to agree on. $6.5 million. $5.7 million is presented by Pond and Croy, and $800,000 in engineering that Croy told us in the meeting on Thursday night. In addition to that, I have $4 million for the parking deck, and that's not going to get us the 250 spaces that we originally estimated. New restrooms in the park that were presented on June 3rd but were taken out was $250,000. Demolition of the records building is about $50,000 for a $4,300,000 project. In addition, I've added 10% contingency, which is the same as Croy and Pond added to their fees. So I put in the same 10% contingency. And I reduced their engineering fee from 14% to 12% to $567,000, making the total for the phase two project at $5,297,000. Total for the entire project at $11,797,600. That's my issue. And the thing that makes me so mad about this project is we went from a $6.5 million project to $11.7 million project, and the newspapers reported a $5.7 million project, and nobody spoke up about it. Nobody said a word. And that's just, it's just wrong. You know, if I hadn't spoke up about it, I don't think anybody, it would have passed through here and nobody would have ever known. But we need to, we as a council owe it to you to tell you everything that I know. I've started sending out the weekly newsletter to everybody on my everybody on my email list. We owe it to you to tell you what's going on. Today, I'm telling you this is an $11.8 million project. It's not a $6.5 million project. Council's been presented with a plan to fund the overall budget. It's been split into two phases to make it feel better, and we've got a $6.5 million project in phase one. I mean, people sitting here, and the people sitting up here, and I mean we need to do better. First, we need to be better planners. And second, we need to make sure that each of you has the information that we have and that you all have the rest of the story as well. I simply can't support spending almost $12 million to revitalize a downtown that, in my opinion, is already a vital asset to our town. And for those of you who hadn't figured it out, I'm not supporting this project. I wanted you to know why.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. I would, for the record, as I stated in my initial remarks, the $6.5 million for the green space, or Phase 1, that you had on your screen, and then $4 million for the parking deck, that adds, to me, $10.5 million. And what Mr. Welch has done here is he's added contingency to the $4 million, and he's added back in the restrooms that the public comment we took out. So when you have $430,000 added for contingency and another $250,000 that's not included in the plan, that inflates that number. And so 11.797 is not correct. $10.5 million is correct. And as I stated in my initial remarks, the parking deck is slated for $4 million. Now that includes contingency, that includes whatever it is. So the number of spaces would be reduced, and this council would make that decision at that time. I just want to be clear on what we're talking about here. $10.5 million. I'd like to turn it over now to Mr. Tim Gould, who's signed up to speak next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, thank you all for being here tonight. It's almost 10 after 9. It's late. I appreciate you guys making time to be here, and very thankful for the folks who are fiercely advocating to ensure Smyrna remains a great place to live while continuing to move forward with new, creative, and welcoming ideas. A lot of different voices in the room. The thing that's really fascinating is that everybody really in this room has somewhat the general goal, right? We all love Smyrna. We only want the best for our city and for our communities. We just differ on the way to get there. I've been pretty clear that I'm supportive of this plan for two main reasons: economic development, number one, and then number two, creating a more vibrant space for large community gatherings and year-round use. For economic development, since I've been on council, you hear so often, how come there's not more restaurants, more creative retail in the downtown area? And that's obviously that comes when we have more folks in the downtown. Those businesses follow very quickly. Since word's been out in the media and elsewhere about the projects that are pending, businesses have already been coming talking to us. They want to be here because they know what we're going to do here. It's already happening. When we move forward with the park redesign area, I look forward to seeing that space filled year-round, not only on concerts and major events, but I think that space will be used actively on a daily basis. Talked about small businesses, the impact that'll have locally. The small businesses are the lifeblood of our community. They donate to our local schools and other worthy causes, and they employ a lot of folks, right? So this project is one small part of our economic development plan for the city, but it's a very key important part of the plan. Somebody asked about our strategic plan. Economic development is probably the top priority in that long-term strategic plan. And again, this is just one piece of the puzzle. Resident mentioned competing with other cities. We need to continue to move forward, bring some bold, creative ideas. Not everybody's going to agree with it, but the goal is to keep moving forward and to keep helping our city grow. On the engaging space, we've talked a lot about the concert, right? Wonderful concert. I'm debating about how many folks were here, 25, 30,000 folks, I'm not sure. But most of us had obstructive views. A few people had some great views, but again, year-round use, and it'll be even better for the large events. Pedestrian friendly, and again, just a better space. So anyway, long story short, that's why I'm supportive of it, and I look forward to voting yes for this.
Ms. Wilkinson, you're signed up again to speak, but I would ask you if you would mind yielding to Mr. Pickens and Mr. Wagner, who have also signed up and have not had a chance to speak yet. Okay? Mr. Pickens.
Absolutely not.
Cool. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say from the beginning I've been in support of this project for a few different reasons. One, if you look at the downtown right now, it's pretty disjointed, as has been said tonight. It's kind of three different sections. You have your downtown Market Village right there. Then you have your Veterans Green right there. And then the roundabout. There's always people out here, always packed. Even yesterday, I was at the farmer's market yesterday, full of people. Went out to the Veterans Lawn. Families out there hanging out, tons of people having picnics, probably 20 different people just hanging out, enjoying the day. Then I walked down to the roundabout. Not a soul was down there. It was a ghost town. And if we want to have a vibrant town, we need to do stuff like this that is different, and it moves the city forward. And I'm excited to see how it invigorates the downtown. And people always say we need better restaurants, we need better shops, we need better this in the downtown. People aren't going to come unless there is a reason for people to come. It's kind of like a cause and effect. If you build a place for people to hang out at, then businesses will come. So I'm excited for this project and can't wait to see how it does and changes the city.
Thank you, Mr. Pickens. Mr. Wagner.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I want to start off in expressing that I think it's been obvious through the process that with the design, I'm supportive of the design. I think where we've moved through the committee process and the iterations that we've gone through, that we've resulted in a plan that I think is going to improve to all the points that have been made. You know, when I approached this project in the initial vote, the goals that I presented is that I wanted a more walkable, I wanted a more pedestrian-friendly downtown. I wanted a place that I thought that people could gather, and I didn't think a roundabout did that. I think we're moving in that direction to where we're moving, cars and vehicular traffic as much as possible to the perimeters of our downtown rather than in our central core. So on that front, I think the design has moved in a good direction, and I think this will be a net positive for the city. And I do want to take just this moment, I do want to thank Councilman Lindley for the committee process. I think we tried our best to get input, to have a traffic study, to have things that looked at how this was going to move forward. I want to thank Pond and Croy for trying to do their best and respond to all the different criticisms and constructive and otherwise on how to improve this design. So I want to start with that. And I've expressed the same thing to, I think, most of the people on the council and many of the people who have talked to me, that I think the design is positive. However, I think we've had some problems with some process and some decisions that we've made where I think at times in this council we talked a lot about puzzle pieces, and that this is one piece of the puzzle and that we've got other pieces to build. But to a point where we're dealing with multiple different pieces of that puzzle in downtown, we haven't really made decisions about the other parts of it. And that's concerning to me, especially when we're talking about an ongoing conversation with what might happen with the land across the street and next to the community center and what's going to happen there. We haven't had any further conversation about that. We've talked about the parking garage and the commitment that it would stay at $4 million. I definitely think that's possible. However, that hasn't been part of the conversation. The other part is the conversation about South Cobb Drive. I think if we get the money that we've been told that is possible through both federal and state funds, that we can do probably what we want with South Cobb Drive with the $6.5 million. But we're not going to know that for quite some time. And it's hard, and sometimes, we've got to make tough decisions about kind of the risk reward there. Are we going to move forward with something now, and at risk of hurting ourselves later, or are we going to step back and are we going to look and say, maybe there's some other pieces of this puzzle that we should figure out before we start building the puzzle? So with all of that, I've been conflicted on this, and even today I've talked with a number of people that I've struggled with where I want to go on this vote. Like I said, I think the plan is positive, and it will be a net gain. I think it's a worthy investment, but I have concerns that we're not doing all of this together. We don't have all the pieces of the information that we should. I think if we're forced to vote on this plan now, like I said, I'm supportive of what it will do for downtown. I'd also like to take this moment just right now because I'm frustrated at some of the process that has come with some of the opposition that we've had, because there's been a lot of misinformation that's been going around. And I want to take a moment to just call that out because it's been frustrating to try to have conversations with people and have good conversations about what we need to do in the downtown and what we need to do in the city, And it's constantly comes back to a lot of pieces of information that aren't part of the conversations that were had and aren't part of what we're actually trying to do. So I think, when we're trying to have constructive criticism, we've got to start from the same place. We've got to start from the same facts. And it's exhausting to have to go back through all the time and deal with pieces of information that no one has said and are just being made up. So with all of that out of the way, like I said, I think this plan is a net positive if we can do it, but I don't think we should necessarily be doing it without the conversations for the surrounding pieces. So with that, Mr. Mayor, while I think if it comes down to it and we have to have a vote on the merits of this plan, I would support it. I would like to move to try to table this to have some more conversation about the adjoining properties and the parking deck. So at the appropriate time,
Okay.
I would move that.
Ms. Wilkinson has signed up to speak again. Ms. Wilkinson.
Thank you. So, as everyone was talking, several other things came to mind. And to answer Corky's question, I have been here since, I guess, 35 years. So I was here before the downtown was done, and I saw the development of the downtown, and really, loved everything that's happened. And, I think that the framework that's there is a very strong design and connectivity. And I'm not so much opposed to closing the roundabout down. I just think it's a strong element. And as I said before, I think that some of the elements that I have seen in the pond study could also be incorporated now. I think the traffic signal could also improve the situation that it currently is now. I think it could work both ways. And the same with the three-way stop at Bank Street and King Street. I think that could also help to improve the flow of the traffic as it is now. The other thing I heard several people speak about the view of the stage, and I've gone to almost every single concert here and every birthday concert, and I've enjoyed it a lot. And I've sat in different locations and had those experiences, and they're different, and I've enjoyed all the different places I've sat, even on the Veterans Lawn when my kids were younger, and it was a good place for us over there. I think my kids, it was better because we were away from the noise. They didn't like the noise as much. So, and then, I've sat on the area in front of the fountain. But on the concert that we just had recently, last weekend, I also took a walk around the area and looked at it from different perspectives. And there was one area that I had never sat in or looked at it from, and that was up there at Atlanta Road, looking toward the stage. And I was amazed at how the view was from that direction and how many people were in that area. There was probably as many people in that area as there were over there on the Veterans Lawn, and it was amazing. So I just think that the current style of the design and everything, it offers a lot of flexibility. And I'll repeat that I feel like there could have been, a process where we looked at it before we approved that that initial concept that was shown to us on the 3rd, and then we voted on it on the 21st. I just think there could have been some other options out there that worked for everyone in our community. And I would also like to add, because this is very important to me, and I just want to go on the record to say this. So during this process in the public, when they had the public input meetings, I attended the public input meeting at Bronner, and I saw Corky Welch there. I don't know if any other council members came that night. I just saw him when I got there, and I was amazed at how I was bombarded with people that were against the plan, and they were communicating that to me in person. And I was shocked because it was people that I have never met before coming up and telling me that. And then I think, I'm not sure what Corky experienced, but we came back because we had a CAL meeting here at the council chambers, and we came back, and Councilman Welch mentioned that he would like for the council to receive the citizen input. They had a box there, and there was citizen comments that were being put in the box, and he mentioned it, and then I mentioned it too, and I do believe that I noticed other council members were nodding their head. And I also brought up the fact that in other studies that we've done, that we had received those comment cards, and we were able to look at them. They were important for me. I mean, some people might think it's petty and tedious, but as a council representative, 10 years on the council, that was very important for me to read the comments of the citizens, and not to have somebody, tell me what they said, or they took a consensus with like 15% like this design and this picture, and 45 like this. I wanted to read their individual comments, and okay, and so since that was on September the 6th when we asked for those comment cards, and since then, so now it's been over a month. I've asked several times, I've had several conversations asking for them, and it had nothing to do with any open records request, because I actually didn't even know that. I was asking them for my own, interest and as a representative. And so also on Tuesday, October the 12th, because I had been going back and forth, and it seemed like people didn't understand what I was asking for, and I actually got a book out where I had, it was this thick, of the comments that were compiled by Corey Engineering into a notebook of the South Cobb Drive corridor study, and it showed the handwritten notes of all the citizens, and I read those. Well, and that I showed those to the city administrator, so he knew what I was asking about. And I still, tonight, I have yet to get those comment cards. And I did express my disappointment upstairs that here we are, this vote is being put before us, and I still haven't had the opportunity to look at the comment cards from the citizens. And with that, I yield. Thank you.
Looks like Mr. Welch has signed up to speak again. Mr. Welch?
Thank you. I'll be really quick. I heard somebody comment a while ago that, my numbers, I need to get my numbers square. And, I'm not mad at the mayor. The mayor and I generally get along pretty well. We have a difference of opinion on this issue. But anyway, regarding the numbers, if you want to meet me, I'll be happy to give you a copy of my estimate and let you take a look at it, and I'll explain to you how I came about it.
Okay. All right, with that, we are finished with all of the comments, I believe, from council, and I will turn it over to Mr. Lindley, who will close debate, and then we will consider Mr. Wagner's motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to the council, and again, thanks to all of you that have endured now almost 2.5 hours. It has been a long process and a long evening. I am pleased as the chair of the task force with the work that has been done, and I'll recommend this evening on behalf of that task force that council approve, move us and move us forward. So at the appropriate time, I have the motion.
All right, the motion to table will be considered first. That is a motion made by Councilman Wagner. Is there a second for that motion? That's seconded by Mr. Welch. Those in favor of tabling will vote yes. Those not in favor of tabling will vote no. And all those, please vote now. All right, that's a 3-3 tie. In those cases, I break the tie, and I'm going to vote to move forward. We're not going to table this event. So now we will move on to, that motion fails, 3-4, and I will turn it over now to Mr. Lindley for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the implementation of the downtown development improvement for the Village Green area and surrounding streets as shown on the preferred concept plan developed by Pond and Company, and upgrade through citizen input as shown on the recommended concept plan dated October 15th, 2021, at the estimated cost of construction of $5.698,317.
Have a motion seconded by Mr. Pickens. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 4-2 with Mr. Welch and Ms. Wilkinson voting in the negative. Thank you all for participating in the process, for being here tonight. We do have a consent agenda to go through, but I understand that y'all may not want to stay for that, and that is just fine. Item 7 is commercial building permits. We have none. Item 8 is a consent agenda. Mr. Bennett, can you please read the consent agenda for council approval?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Item A, MIN 2021-74, approval of the October 4th, 2021 pre-council meeting minutes. Item B, MIN 2021-71, approval of the October 4th, 2021 mayor and council meeting minutes. Item C, 2021-468, approval of mayor's appointment to the Smyrna Tree Board, Mr. Jeff Carter, to fulfill term expiring August 2024. Item D, 2021-441, approval to allow Belmont Hills Elementary School to host a character parade on October 29th, 2021 from 9 o'clock to 9:20 a.m., utilizing a temporary road closure of Glendale Place at 272 feet. Item E, 2021-457, approval to award the contract for RFQ 22-012 for San Fernando Drive waterline replacement to KM Davis Contracting Company Incorporated, 3259 Austell Road, Marietta, Georgia, 30008, in the amount of $574,792.30. It's for labor and materials to be funded out of the fiscal year 2022 Water CIP Fund. Item F, approval to purchase a 2022 Ford F-550 with 11-foot Duraclass contractor dump body from Wade Ford, 3860 South Cobb Drive, Smyrna, Georgia, 30080, through the City of Atlanta contract number 99999-001-SPD 0000155. This will be funded by the FY 2022 CIP Vehicle Replacement Fund for a total cost of $74,320. And finally, item G, 2021-465, approval of no parking signs along Woodland Terrace, beginning at Spring Road and ending at Galleria Manor Complex.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Mr. Lindley, seconded by Mr. Gould. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 6-0. Thank you. Item 9 is ward and committee reports, and we'll start tonight with Mr. Glenn Pickens.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We had a great discussion on the process and moving forward, so that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Wagner.
No report tonight.
Mr. Lindley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two quick things. I had the distinct pleasure to join the Rose Garden Fall Festival this weekend. It was a great turnout. It was good to see people back out and about and enjoying a beautiful, yet windy Saturday afternoon. And last night, as I know a number of folks got to participate in the Secrets of Smyrna, which was put on here by our local folks in the arts, and it was tremendous. Hope they do that in the future and look to be supportive. Thank you.
Mr. Welch.
No report this evening.
Ms. Wilkinson.
Yes, I just want to thank all the Ward 5 citizens for their involvement and for their time, and also for coming tonight and speaking and participating. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Likewise, folks who are still here, which is impressive. Yeah, thanks for coming out to advocate for your point of view. Secondly, I too joined the Secrets of Smyrna tour last night, which was a great event put on by the Arts Council. Hopefully, we'll do again next year, and it builds on a really wonderful live telling of Smyrna history. So it was not only enjoyable, but informative. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. And I forgot to mention in my mayoral report, thank you all for coming out on Saturday for our college football Saturday. We had a big screen up and all kinds of games on, and a great crowd. We're going to do it again on November 13th, and I believe again, whatever the date the SEC championship is in December. Great time, and I really appreciate our Parks and Rec staff and Richard Garland for all the work that they did putting that on. Mr. Bennett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since it was mentioned in some comments concerning the comment cards, I would like to put in the record the timeline. The online survey ended Sunday, September 26th. Pond was diligent in, I guess, sifting through all the public comments to give a percentage to us on October the 5th. Ms. Wilkinson requested October the 12th for the copy of the public comments. On October the 13th, I contacted Pond. October the 14th, our city attorney had requested an opportunity to look at the cards to be sure no personal information needed to be redacted. And I heard back from our city attorney today, and a request was sent to Pond to provide those comment cards. With that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cochran?
No.
Ms. Heather? Okay. Item 10 is show cause hearings. We have none. Item 11 is citizen input, and we have some folks who are signed up. I don't know whether they meant to sign up on this and have already spoken. Some of these names already have. I'll just go through the list, and if you're still here and wish to make comments, you're welcome to come up at that time. Ms. Tanya Brinkley, Belmont, declines at this time. Alex Backery? Okay. Richard Pecha, Brown Circle, I know you already spoke. Did you want to come up again? Okay.
By the way, I just mentioned,
Ms. Heather, if you'll start the clock, please. Thank you.
I kept it off of what you said don't speak about, but I imagine we could speak about, the brewery or possibility.
The world is your oyster.
Thanks. I mentioned to the pastor, just put him a note of the First Methodist Church.
Can you speak into the microphone so everybody can hear you?
It must be still up for that other guy. The pastor of the First Methodist, how he would feel the same way if he was the pastor of the Second Baptist Church. It seems like the city's number one purpose and function now is to become an entertainment center. It's no more than kind of dangling Turkish delight. The city has ordinances, which I've got loads of them, saying how its citizens must keep their yards manicured, no grass higher than 8 inches, noise ordinances, but they don't apply to the city. It's how convenient. Respect seems to be a one-way street. The neighborhood has been here a half century before the city expanded to its present-day footprint. It's not pointed out that in no uncertain terms, you're making every effort to displace a church that has been there for 75 years by putting a monolithic 3-story beer factory within 100 feet of the church, 200 feet of the park, and very close to the library, and with shouting distance of 2,000 school children, half of them elementary school children. All of these entities have ordinances restricting their distances from things like that, but it's quite convenient when the city can tweak them a bit whenever it wants. So why don't you just tell all citizens of Smyrna that don't worry, we have all these ordinances to protect your children, your churches, your parks, the libraries. It won't happen to you, just the folks over here. But if you really want to change it, if we really want to change it, we will. So kind of beware. It's kind of analogous to that old adage, they came from my neighbors and I said nothing. Then they came from me and there was nobody left to speak. I think that the city, if they got done what they need to get done and should get done first and foremost, then maybe you could go on to this. The city can't even mow the lawn that's been mowed for decades behind my property. For a whole year now, I've talked to 4 or 5 people, no problem, no offense with them because they're busier than all get up, across the kudzu-ridden land from the duck pond. I've taken care of it for all the time. I'm pushing 70. So if you can't mow your lawn, I don't see why you can do this thing. I've been 30 to 40 feet buffer from the kudzu. It's now on my property. And I wonder why you haven't told the citizens when the task force was put together for this project, left off was a council member who, as an engineer, it was right in their wheelhouse. Why What were you afraid of? Heaven forbid you have somebody on the project that thinks a little differently than you. Haven't we learned anything in these last years? Just what were you afraid of? I'm sure you haven't told the citizens that this vote tonight has already been decided and done, and I apologize. When the mayor was photographed wearing a shirt of the beer factory.
Thank you for your
brewery.
comments. Thank you.
A bit unethical and just not quite right.
Thank you. David Lincoln, Parkwood Road.
I reserved the voice for the end because I kind of knew how that vote was going to go. Dave Lincoln, Parkwood Road. Been here for 30 years, and I got to tell you guys, I think you made a mistake. And actually, first off, I'm sorry for Lewis's dad. I mean, we all got to respect that, and I kind of wish he would have had a vote instead of you being the tiebreaker, Mayor. Anyhow, it's a sad day for him last week, and it was very difficult. But this park, I wish we could have considered some other road options. As I said last time when I was here, the Bank Street jog, when you look in the view that Croy is showing, the aerial view, it's very clear to see the places like Porchlight and those areas, they're underserved by the road. And if you're concerned about business and having access and all that, then the Bank Street going right through to Atlanta Road makes a lot of sense. And then we could do away with the roundabout. I do think the roundabout's kind of seen a better day. Cars are bigger and there are more of them, mostly SUVs and large trucks now. So you put them through the roundabout, it is kind of not a good combination with people and vehicles. But I think through that we could have more green space, truly green space with nice walking paths, with great curves, undulating ground surface. It doesn't have to all be flat. Certainly we should accommodate the ADA requirements in the library in the front there, and also the community center. But I think the drive up and the ability to drop people off the community center the way it has been designed is pretty good. If we could just, once again, as Croy shows with this pedestrian street area where it's all on the same level, you could easily do that with the plaza in front of the community center and create a stage area that can be adapted when we have that sort of need. So unfortunately, I think we got so fixed on putting this road through, which previous speaker alluded to with the brewery thing. I think that's what's driving the whole design of the center. And that's where I see the problem, and that's where we have the lack of transparency, that we feel something has gone on behind the scenes with Stillfire Brewing. I don't know why, but it just doesn't seem right that they have a road dedicated to them, and we're going to have an alleyway between, a noisy alley, between the community center and the brewery, an echo chamber. It's going to be even noisier for the people on the other side, Williams Park over there, and they're going to have the great view of the brew tanks and all. But it's just a wrong fit. We need a park in the city center, and downtown is separate. That's the way I see it. The city center is the police department, the fire department, the community center, the city hall, the Veterans Memorial, and a park. It doesn't include and should not have a brewery in it. It's not a good space. And we could spend far less and get much more impact for 150th birthday if we concentrate on having a really nice green space, put Bank Street through to Atlanta Road, create better access for those merchants in that area, and still allow Market Village to exist as it is. It would be a great
Thank you for your comments and for being here tonight.
Appreciate your time.
Mr. Scott Worthy, Falling Water. Scott here? Okay. Montserrat Knowlton, I know you spoke earlier. Did you want to come back up? Okay.
Montserrat Knowlton. I live at 1367 Poplar Point. I lived in Smyrna since 1993, and I love the town. Today, I'm not going to talk about all the fun things that I do in downtown Smyrna. No pretty pictures of walks by the pond and surrounding neighborhoods, nor of watching fancy-dressed Spanish quinceañeras and their companions taking pictures at the gazebo and roundabout, or walking in the community center on rainy days. I am not going to talk about going to the library to just see what's new or to pick up a video or a book. Today, I'm not going to talk about going with friends to the restaurants or going on Tuesdays to the wine shop. Today, I'm going to talk about projects, budgets, and money. It's a very dry subject, but necessary subject when talking about construction of any project. Croyan Pond redesign presentation on June 14 was possibly the most important one. They talked about how much money was going to cost to redo downtown. The numbers they provided are totally blurry. They don't line up with completing South Cobb. The initial expenditure of $2.5 million for the downtown has ballooned to 5.7, and that doesn't include their engineering fee of $800,000 or more. Phase 2 of the project is to build a 250 space parking deck, which will cost $3.6 million, at least that's what they have budget for. And to create that space, they need $50,000 to tear up the records building. That records building will have to be replaced, not telling how much that will cost. The engineering fee for phase 2 is about $560,000. And a construction contingency will be about $400,000. Too many numbers to remember? Well, here are the numbers. $5.7 million for phase 1, $4.7 million for phase 2, and engineering fees of $1.367,600, so $1,367,600. The total for phase 1 and 2 comes to $11,797,000. Money-wise, it does not make any sense to spend these funds to redo downtown. The South Cobb project has been needed for many years. It's very important to complete that project for the well-being of Smyrna. Let's not put it in jeopardy. Let's save those funds to complete South Cobb, which is, in the overall picture, much more important project.
Thank you, Ms. Knowlton. Christy Anderson.
Thank you.
Did you want to come back up, Christy? Okay.
Mayor and Council, this is Christy Anderson, 1081 Creekwood Circle. It is a bit of a sad day when we haven't taken the time that our previous council took before to come together to get more people on board. It just seems like a perpetuation of what's happening in today's world, where so many people are divided and nobody's taken the time to bring them together, and it breaks my heart. Regarding the community center land, Mayor Norton, you told me face to face, we are looking at the brewery because they are the first people that came to us. Your words to me.
You're right.
I beg you, do not marry the first person you date. Please. We can do better. We deserve better. We need something there maybe. Does the land need to be sold? That's all up for debate. But please don't rush this decision like y'all rushed this one. Thank you.
Sean Martin. Did you want to come back up? I did. Sean Martin.
My name is Sean Martin. My oldest, please come. Come. You can start the clock. First of all, I want to tell you guys, this has been a very long fight, very long journey, and I owe it to my girls. These guys are the ones that I do this for, and I hope that the decisions that each one of you make for this city moving forward is for your offspring as well. And so Grace learned a wonderful lesson about how you have to use your voice, right? You stick up for what you believe in, right? And I encourage her to do the same. She's been on those tours over at the open land. I said we were going to protest, and we did. We threw Frisbee. That was our our form of protest in that open space. And so I say to you guys, thank you so much, because you know I haven't been there for y'all the way I should have been in the past 2 to 3 months. Thank you. So I'd say you could have a seat. It's a shame that we're in this place. Many of your supporters, they laughed at us. They held their papers up, yes, you know, and it's unfortunate. I believe what Kristen said is exactly right. It's a shame that we're in this place of division, and the council apparently is complicit with that. I challenge you to think different about this moving forward. So I just ask for some real quick, want to make just a few parting requests. Smart Smyrna, we did this, right? You guys might have won the battle, but we won the war, and we knew that we were on you guys' heels because you responded, and we thank you. We thank you for making the process work to be a better government for Smyrna, and we encourage you to continue that. The second thing is, Mayor Travis, you got to do better. Cal meeting, ridiculous. You really, really need to start treating your people, your senior people, with the respect that they are due. I'm sorry. It does not give you the right to demean people in the way and in the fashion that I saw last Thursday. The next thing is, please give the city an opportunity to memorialize our traffic circle. And I say, I think we are going to pivot our attention to this next space, and we thank you for your service to our community.
Thank you for your comments. Jean Mankey still here? Did she want to come back up? She said her piece about the trees and got out of here. All right, Kathy Omates, Countryside. Is Kathy here? Okay. And Susan, you've signed up?
Decline. Thanks.
Okay. That concludes our citizen input. If there are no other issues to be brought before this body, we are adjourned at 9:52. Thank you all very much.